Chapter 1911, 72815, *= translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Lin nodded and turned to walk towards the scene of the incident. There were already many people there, but Lin, he was like a fish in water, quickly splitting the crowd and arriving at the center. Fan Ganha, are you doing this on purpose? You knocked my steamed bun to the ground. Do you want me to deduct points? Bai Wei Tuo was so angry that his face turned red. This Fan Ganha was really too much of a bully. After bumping into him, not only did he not apologize, he even had a gloating look on his face. I hit you? How am I supposed to hit you if you don't hit me? You can't even see where you're going, yet you're criticizing others? Fan Ganha sneered. Let me tell you, Bai Wei Tuo, if we hadn't drunk together before, I would have sent you flying to the Pacific Ocean with my fist. You. Bai Wei Tuo's chest heaved up and down. This Fan Ganha was a gifted student. If they were to really fight, the one at a disadvantage would definitely be him, Bai Wei Tuo. However, the steamed bun fell to the ground. Bai Wei Tuo was unwilling to lose 2 points for no reason. You can pick it up. If you pick it up and eat it, you won't have to deduct points. Zhang Duopan's voice sounded from his side. It seemed like he was speaking up for Bai Wei Tuo. But wasn't it also insulting him? Oh, that's right. You can pick it up and eat it. Then you won't have to deduct any points. Fan Ganha kicked the 2 steamed buns on the ground. The 2 steamed buns rolled on the ground at Bai Wei Tuo's feet. The already dirty steamed buns became even dirtier. Bai Wei Tuo wanted to smash the plate in his hand on Fan Ganha's face, but he knew that he couldn't do that. If he did, it wouldn't be as simple as a deduction of 2 points. It would be a violation of the rules, and he would definitely be sent back to school by the instructor. He might even lose his military training credits. What happened to us? Everyone knows that every grain of food on the plate is hard work. Don't waste it. We have to be diligent and thrifty. Fan Ganha looked at Bai Wei Tuo mockingly. Last time at the KTV, Bai Wei Tuo and Lin made Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha lose face. Naturally, the 2 of them were unwilling to give up and wanted to find an opportunity to take revenge on Bai Wei Tuo. After hearing about the food discipline, they knew that the opportunity had come. Bai Wei Tuo took a deep breath. He was prepared to pick up the 2 steamed buns on the ground first. If he left them on the plate and didn't eat them, he would lose 1 point at most. If he threw them on the ground, he would lose 2 points. This was a matter of academic credits, so he was prepared to bear with it. However, just as Bai Wei Tuo was about to bend down to pick up the 2 steamed buns on the ground, a hand beat him to it. The owner of this hand was Lin Yi. Shouldn't we deduct their points? Everyone at the scene was flabbergasted. Lin Yi was lying through his teeth. Wasting food. Deduct 2 points from these 2. Chen Yuqian glanced at Fan Ganha and Zhang Duopan and said faintly, What? Zhang Duopan panicked. He didn't expect to get his points deducted. Head instructor, it's him. He forced the steamed bun in my mouth. Oh, why did he force it into your mouth? Chen Yuqian asked. Zhang Duopan didn't know what to say. He was the one who made Fan Ganha do that, so he couldn't explain himself. But since Chen Yuqian asked, he could only force himself to say, because these 2 steamed buns fell on the ground. It was him, Bai Wei Tuo, who dropped them. We came to persuade him not to waste food, but this Lin, he picked them up and stuffed them into our mouths. Tisk. Zhang Duopan's words attracted a wave of disgust from the students. They'd seen everything with their own eyes, after all, and if they were to say that Lin, he was lying through his teeth, then these 2 were twisting the facts to make a deer out of a horse. Oh, how did you persuade him? Chen Yuqian continued. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1912, 72815, *= Chapter 1924. Late autumn night, Chen Yuqian knew that Lin Yi wasn't someone who liked to cause trouble. He wouldn't provoke others unless they provoked him. So Chen Yuqian knew that this wasn't Lin Yi's fault. Zhang Duopan didn't expect Chen Yuqian to ask so many questions. They kicked the steamed buns twice and let Bai Wei Tuo pick them up and eat them. Song Xiaodao said from the side. Is that so? Chen Yuqian turned to Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha. This. The two of them knew that with so many classmates watching, it was absolutely impossible for them to lie at this moment. They could only stammer and not dare to admit it. Wasting food and causing trouble. Both of you, I'll deduct 4 points each. Chen Yuqian turned and left after finishing his sentence. Fan Ganha and Zhang Duopan regretted it for a while. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have explained it. Now that they had explained it, 2 more points were deducted. What was this? Bai Weituo found it strange that Chen Yutian seemed to be siding with him. But he was the victim, so he didn't think too much about it. He laughed happily. Justice is in everyone's heart. Some people just shot themselves in the foot. Humph. Let's see who's better at the freshman's party. Zhang Duopan pulled Fan Ganha along. The two of them left some harsh words and quickly left. They couldn't afford to lose face like this. After Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha left, Bai Weituo patted Lin Yi's shoulder and said excitedly, "Big brother Lin, you're so cool. Let's go eat." Lin Yi said with a smile. Xin Yan, on the other hand, couldn't help but cover her mouth and smile at the scene. This Lin Yi really was a violent maniac, wasn't he? At another table not far away, Himeiwa looked at Zhang Duopan with some disappointment. In the past, she felt that Zhang Duopan was a good person. Although she didn't have a good impression of him, she didn't have any bad impression of him either. However, what Zhang Duopan did today was simply disgusting. Although Bai Weituo's previous performance was somewhat cowardly, Himeiwa did not feel that he was cowardly. Fan Ganha was a gifted student. Ordinary students were not his match. Bai Weituo was simply asking for a beating. As for Lin Yi, Himeiwa shook her head. You really couldn't judge a book by its cover. Who would have thought that a gentleman would be so violent? Of course, Himeiwa didn't care about Lin Yi at all. He didn't admit to his relationship with Xin Yan, but she could tell from the way he sat next to her that their relationship wasn't normal. Although this small episode was intense, it subsided quickly. Everyone was hungry. Moreover, this was the army, and there were very strict rules, so everyone found a place to eat. However, what happened just now made them relish in talking about it. After the meal, the students all returned to their own barracks. It was fine when the lights were on, but now that the power was off, she was a little nervous. What are you thinking about? Eyes wide open. Lin, he asked with a smile. Xin Yan still hadn't rested after a while. You can see me? Xin Yan was a little surprised. There was no light in the barracks at night, and it was pitch black outside the window. Only the faint moonlight shone in from a window not far away, but it was very weak. She couldn't see what was going on in the barracks. Your eyes are so bright. I can see you. Linny couldn't help but tease. Xin Yan pursed her lips, not knowing what to say. After a while, she harumphed. Nonsense, I'm not a wolf. Go to sleep. Lin, he said before closing his eyes. Xin Yan waited for a while, and seeing that Lin, he wasn't talking anymore, she fell asleep as well. Late autumn nights were very cold. Everyone was wearing thick camouflage clothing, but there were no blankets. It was still a little chilly. Target equals _blank. Chapter 19:13. Date: October 11th. Xin Yan was only wearing a tank top under her camouflage fatigue. It was only natural for her to feel cold, and so she subconsciously searched for warmth, burrowing into Lin Yi's arms. It was very warm here. Lin didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the sleeping Wang Xin Yan in his arms out of nowhere. Lin, he hadn't slept at all. He'd close his eyes to train in the Jade Space. Ever since he'd learned the secrets of the Jade Space, Lin, he hadn't slept at all. His perception of the outside world was still very strong, and so when Xin Yan ran into his arms, Lin, he sensed it immediately. Lin, he shook his head and came out of the Jade Space. He wanted to push Xin Yan away, but he didn't want to let her go. Hugging Xin Yan gave him a peace of mind, and Lin, he couldn't help but fall into a trance as he took in the faint scent of Xin Yan's body. The scent made Lin, he very comfortable, and so Lin, he couldn't help but sniff a few more times. All of a sudden, he felt a heat in his abdomen, and Lin, he jumped in fright. Did he have some sort of feelings for Xin Yan? If that were the case, it'd be very awkward if Xin Yan found out. At that thought, Lin Yi hurriedly channeled the second stage of the art of dragon mastery, trying to dispel the fire in his body. But as soon as Lin Yi's chi touched the fire in his abdomen, Lin Yi was confused. This wasn't that kind of fire. Lin Yi could tell if it was because of him, but if that wasn't the case, then could this heat be because of Xin Yan's fragrance? But no matter what the reason was, Lin Yi didn't dare to delay, and had already started to use his pure chi to dissolve that ball of fire. But in the next moment, Lin Yi was surprised to find that after the ball of fire was dissolved, it seemed to have become pure chi that filled his body, and his strength was also continuously increasing. After the ball of fire was dissolved, Lin Yi's strength actually had an obvious increase. Although he still hadn't reached the barrier of Earth-class early phase peak in Chapter 1925, he was getting closer and closer to that barrier. Lin Yi was very puzzled. Why was his strength increasing? Moreover, this speed was clearly faster than just channeling the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. It wasn't by much, but it was fast. Lin Yi could feel it. Perhaps it really was because of the fragrance on Xin Yan's body? Lin Yi frowned, secretly surprised. But since he found such a good opportunity, he didn't want to waste it. It wasn't easy to get a chance to share a bed with Xin Yan. Of course, he'd want to absorb more of this fragrance to train. Otherwise, Xin Yan might not agree to it when he got back to school. Lin Yi didn't sleep that night, and his body kept channeling the art of dragon mastery until dawn. Xin Yan was a bit cold in the middle of the night, and naturally went to find warmth. She opened her eyes in the morning to find herself in Lin Yi's arms. She was a bit surprised, but then she saw that Lin Yi wasn't hugging her, but she was hugging Lin Yi. Xin Yan was relieved, but also embarrassed. Lin Yi didn't do anything to her, but she threw herself into his arms. How shameless! If Lin Yi saw this, what would Lin Yi think? With that thought, Xin Yan tried to get out of Lin Yi's arms. She sneaked a glance at Lin Yi and realized that Lin Yi's eyes were closed. She quickly moved her body inwards, but Lin Yi felt it. Lin Yi hadn't slept at all. He'd been training the whole time, and so he spoke subconsciously. Xin Yan, you're awake? Ah. Xin Yan didn't expect Lin Yi to wake up earlier than her. Was Lin Yi pretending to be asleep with his eyes closed? This guy was trying to take advantage of her when he was awake. No. Xin Yan suddenly remembered that if Lin Yi wanted to take advantage of her, he could have just hugged her. Why did he have to do this? Xin Yan understood after a bit of thought. Lin Yi probably didn't want to disturb her, seeing that she was sleeping soundly. Even so, Xin Yan still felt embarrassed. I was a bit cold last night. It's fine. I don't mind being a heater. Lin Yi really didn't mind. Lin Yi had a good impression of Xin Yan in the first place, and now that Xin Yan's scent was good for his training, Lin Yi didn't mind at all. In fact, he liked it. I'm up. Xin Yan quickly got out of bed, seeing that the conversation was getting more and more intimate. In fact, there were a lot of students who woke up at this time, but it was still early. There was still some time before 6, so they wanted to rest a bit more. Xin Yan went to the washroom to wash her face, and Lin Yi got up as well. Bai Weituo saw that someone was up, and he, as the class monitor, couldn't stay in bed. But since Lin Yi and Xin Yan were the first to wake up, Bai Weituo didn't find it embarrassing at all. Woo woo woo. A loud wake-up call sounded. It was 5:50, and they were ready. All the students in the barracks ran out and lined up in front of the barracks. Chen Yutian showed up at 6 sharp, and the day's training began. The training for the first 3 days was simple. It was what they had practiced in middle and high school. Marching, changing lines, and so on. Although it was tiring, they could still persist. No more unpleasantness happened in the cafeteria. With Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe as an example, no one dared to cause any more trouble. As for how Chun Yutian handled the two, other than Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe, who were a little dissatisfied, the others didn't think that Chen Yutian was unfair. Although Lin Yi was a little harsh, he was still standing up for his classmate. In everyone's eyes, it was an act of brotherhood. Since they weren't punished, it meant that Chen Yutian was an open-minded instructor. In fact, if it weren't for Lin Yi, Chen Yutian would have punished them as well. But since it was related to Lin Yi, he was biased. Chapter 1914. Although Lin Yi's mastery of the second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery was partly due to this, Wang Xinyan's scent played an important role. Although Wang Xinyan would hug Lin Yi every morning, it was a little awkward, but as time went by, the awkwardness faded away. Now, Wang Xinyan wasn't as shy as before because Lin Yi didn't take advantage of her, and she didn't do it on purpose. There was no need for the two of them to be awkward. Just like what Lin Yi said, the two of them were good friends. From the fourth day onwards, it was military boxing. Military boxing. Most of the students had heard of this name, but they had never practiced it. After all, there were Muay Thai, Sanda, Taekwondo, and even Tai Chi in the martial arts training classes, but there were very few that taught military boxing. They were curious about this boxing technique that everyone in the military practiced. Only Yu Coiling Tiger had a disdainful smile on his face. Military boxing, although it sounds ordinary, is a boxing technique that every soldier in the army knows. Many people think that it's only for strengthening their bodies. Chen Yuqian paused for a moment before continuing. Military boxing can strengthen your body, but it's also a very practical fighting style. It's very effective when you're fighting with your enemies in close combat. Not to mention normal soldiers. Even the special forces might use military boxing when fighting against enemies. So, if you practice military boxing well, it will guarantee your safety in the future. If you can use military boxing well when you meet an enemy, you won't have a problem protecting yourself, even if you can't kill the bad guys. These words made the students present look forward to it. Yes, if they could learn this fist technique well, wouldn't they not be taken advantage of by the bad guys when they encounter danger in the future? Even Lin Yi nodded in agreement. Military boxing was a set of martial arts that had been tempered by countless elite soldiers. Chen Yutian wasn't exaggerating at all. Ha-dash! At this moment, someone laughed untimely, as if he was very disdainful of Chen Yutian's words. Who laughed just now? Is there anything wrong? Chen Yutian's face darkened. He didn't expect such a student to exist. Sir, I've seen him before. There's someone in our class who's very strong as well. Your military boxing might not be his match. The one who spoke was the blonde, Tiger Rights follower, the one Lin Yi had taught a lesson to. Previously, when Panhu Yu saw Lin Yi's actions in the cafeteria, he guessed that Lin Yi did not dare to cause trouble on campus. So he began to carry out his plan. He had Huang Mao create some trouble for Lin Yi to disgust Lin Yi. It would be best if Lin Yi could deduct some credits so that he could suffer in silence. This was the highest level of pranking people. Oh, who are you talking about? Chen Yutian frowned as he looked at the blonde's hair color. A trace of disgust flashed through his eyes. This guy was probably a gangster, doing whatever he wanted in school, just because his family was rich. However, this was the military, not a school. Naturally, Chen Yutian wouldn't let him do whatever he wanted. It's Lin Yi. He's a martial arts master. Huang Mao pointed at Lin Yi's direction. Oh, how do you know he's a martial arts master? Are you one too? Chen Yutian asked. Huang Mao didn't expect Chen Yutian to point his spear at him. He was caught off guard. Right Coiling Tiger furrowed his brows. He had been feeling proud of his plan. After all, now that he'd said that, it would be difficult for Lin Yi to decide whether to accept the challenge or not. From Tiger Right's point of view, it would be easy for Lin Yi to defeat this instructor with his strength. But if he defeated the instructor, wouldn't he lose face? Would Lin Yi be able to do well in the military training in the future? Even if the instructor didn't hold a grudge against Lin Yi would still be reprimanded by the school when he returned. But if Lin Yi admitted defeat on purpose, with a strength that could even defeat an Earth-class master, wouldn't it be a very frustrating thing to admit defeat to a normal instructor? If he didn't accept the challenge, Lin Yi would be disobeying orders. Disobeying orders in military training would also result in points deduction. However, Tiger Right didn't expect that the conflict would be shifted back to the blonde. I'm asking you a question. How do you know that Lin Yi is a master? Chen Yutian yelled at the blonde. The blonde didn't know how to explain. Since you know that he's a master, then I see that you're a master as well. Come, fight me and show us military boxing. Chen Yutian knew that the blonde didn't have any good intentions. He wanted to teach him a lesson so that he wouldn't stop. Even if the blonde wasn't against Lin Chun Yu-Tian didn't have a good impression of him with his gangster outfit. Me? Even if he could not graduate, it did not matter. He was just a guest in the Yu family. His education was of no use to him. Hence, the yellow hair chuckled. I can go, but instructor, let's make this clear first. What if I win your military boxing? The yellow hair man was slightly stunned, but he was not afraid. He was here to accompany his young master to study. Yu Coiling Tiger cared about credits, but the yellow hair did not care. Even if he could not graduate, it did not matter. Win? What do you say? Chun Yu-Tian didn't expect the blonde to dare to raise a condition. He focused his eyes and wanted to see where the blonde got his confidence from. Unfortunately, Chun Yu-Tian didn't have the foresight that Lin had. Internal martial arts experts would only reveal their true strength when they were circulating their innate qi. If they did not deliberately reveal their true strength, then they would only reveal their true strength in battle or when they were using qin gong movement techniques. Physical masters didn't have true energy in their body. They could only use their strong physique to activate the true energy in nature. Therefore, Lin wouldn't be able to see their true strength if they didn't make a move. If I win, the three of us won't participate in the military training anymore. But you have to give us full marks for the military training, and you have to give us bonus points as well. The blonde pointed at him, tiger right, and purple hair. Fine. Although it's against the rules, I'll still agree to it. Since you can't beat me, I'll show you what military boxing is. Chun Yu-Tian laughed coldly. Yeah, remember what you said? The blonde laughed and started to activate his incantation. In an instant, the strength of the early phase of the mystic class was revealed. Chun Yu-Tian's eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't expect a gangster to be a master of the early phase of the mystic class. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1915. Of course, Chun Yu-Tian didn't put him in his eyes. He was a master at the peak of the late phase of the mystic class, and his strength had been stabilized. Why would he be afraid of the yellow hair? Attack me. You can use all kinds of moves. I'll only use military boxing. Chun Yu-Tian pretended not to see the yellow hair's strength and said indifferently. The yellow hair sneered in his heart. Pretending? It seems like you don't even know what a cultivator is, and you want to beat me with military boxing? Even if you practice military boxing to the extreme, you're still a normal person. The difference between you and a cultivator is like heaven and earth. Remember what you said. The yellow hair didn't say much and swung his fist. Of course, he was afraid that he would kill Chun Yu-Tian with one punch. So he only used the strength of the early phase of the golden class to teach Chun Yu-Tian a lesson. Bang! The blonde's fist landed on Chun Yu-Tian's arm, and Chun Yu-Tian's move was a defensive move in the military boxing. The yellow hair thought that even if he couldn't break Chun Yu-Tian's arm, he would at least send him flying. However, Chun Yu-Tian didn't move an inch, and the yellow hair retreated a few steps under Chun Yu-Tian's defense, falling on his butt. Ha ha! Seeing the yellow-haired guy sitting on the ground, all the students present burst into laughter. This guy was so arrogant at the beginning. He even wanted the instructor to exempt them from military training. Not only that, he even wanted extra points. Who did he think he was? Chun Yu-Tian didn't want to hurt the yellow hair, so he controlled his strength to the peak of the early phase of the mystic class, suppressing the yellow hair. One had to know that the difference between an earth class and an earth class was one level, and they could kill their opponent. So Chun Yu-Tian only used military boxing to defend and didn't attack the yellow hair, wanting him to back off. But the yellow hair was too careless. If he used his full strength, he wouldn't fall on his butt like this, even if he couldn't do anything to Chun Yu-Tian. Peak of the early phase of the mystic class. The yellow hair looked at Chun Yu-Tian in disbelief. Since when were there so many cultivators? One had to know that he was from a hidden house, and that was why he had the strength of a mystic class. Chun Yu-Tian was just a military instructor, and yet he was stronger than him. Right Coiling Tiger and Purple Hair were practitioners as well. They couldn't see through Chun Yu-Tian's strength before, and they'd be idiots if they still couldn't. Right Coiling Tiger's face changed. Yellow hair, come back. Purple hair, you go. Yes. The purple hair man nodded. He was a mid-phase mystic class master, a head above Chun Yu-Tian, so he agreed without hesitation. I didn't expect Instructor Chun to be a master. Since that's the case, I'll take 2 of your attacks for my brother. Purple Hair stood up and said to Chun Yu-Tian indifferently, "Oh, since you're here, then come. Look carefully. If you meet these little hoodlums in the future, be like me, and you won't be bullied by them." Chun Yu-Tian used these 2 as examples to explain to the students. The purple-haired man was pissed. He was a mid-phase mystic class master, not a hoodlum, but this wasn't the time to talk, and Chun Yu-Tian didn't point out his name. The purple-haired man could only hold it in for now. He'd defeat Chun Yu-Tian later, and that would be the best way to retaliate. Ha ha ha. Yes, Instructor Chun, we're watching carefully, the students said. Peak of the early phase mystic class, is that strong? The purple-haired man sneered at Chun Yu-Tian. He activated his internal arts, revealing his strength as a mid-phase mystic class master. Come, continue to attack me. Chun Yu-Tian glanced at the purple-haired man, and he was even more shocked. There was a mid-phase mystic class? What kind of class was this? There were hidden dragons and crouching tigers. But compared to an Earth-class master like Lin Yi, these people were too weak. The purple-haired man froze. This Chun Yu-Tian was only at the peak of the early-phase mystic class, but he wasn't afraid of him, a mid-phase mystic class master, and even asked him to attack him. Was he an idiot? A high-level master attacking an Earth-class master. Wasn't that a one-sided attack? Hurry up, don't waste everyone's time. Chun Yu-Tian looked at the purple-haired man impatiently. The purple-haired man was pissed. He snorted coldly and kicked towards Chun Yu-Tian. Since Chun Yu-Tian was a master at the peak of the early-phase mystic class, the purple-haired man didn't need to hold back anymore. He would use his full strength and injure Chun Yu-Tian. He was at the peak of the early-phase mystic class anyways, and he wouldn't die. The purple-haired man wanted Chun Yu-Tian to suffer in silence. He was the one who asked him to attack. Even if he injured Chun Yu-Tian, he could only pinch his nose and accept it. He was the one who agreed to the conditions of winning. However, when the purple-haired man kicked, Chun Yu-Tian also used a military boxing to win. But what shocked the purple-haired man was that Chun Yu-Tian wasn't a master at the peak of the early-phase mystic class. He was clearly at the peak of the late-phase mystic class. The purple-haired man regretted it, but it was too late. The moment his foot touched Chun Yu-Tian's fist, he flew backwards. The distance he flew was much further than the yellow-haired man. He flew to the edge of the training ground and landed heavily on the ground, screaming in pain. Ouch! This was the result of Chun Yu-Tian holding back. Otherwise, with Chun Yu-Tian's strength, killing the purple-haired man was as easy as playing with a toy. Wah! The students at the scene immediately gasped in surprise, followed by thunderous applause. Chun Yu-Tian's move was too cool. It looked like an ordinary move, but it had such power. It was like a stunt scene in a martial arts movie. A normal person's punch could only knock someone down, but this kind of punch could send someone flying so far away. Ordinary people couldn't even see it. It was something that could only be seen in movies. Chun Yu-Tian's punch could only be seen in movies. But now, it happened in front of everyone's eyes. It turned out that those scenes in the movie were not a lie to attract attention. But in fact, there really was such a powerful person who could do it. Yellow hair, purple hair, right coiling tiger. You violated the rules. Run 100 laps around the barracks, or you can't have lunch. Chun Yu-Tian glanced at right coiling tiger. He knew that these 3 were in cahoots. Since the yellow-haired man and the purple-haired man weren't ordinary people, this right coiling tiger was probably a practitioner as well. Running 100 laps wasn't a big deal. Yes, the yellow-haired man, the purple-haired man, and right coiling tiger were furious, but they didn't dare to act rashly. This instructor was actually a master at the peak of the late-phase mystic class. In front of such a master, they couldn't fight back. Seeing the 3 running laps, the students at the scene burst into laughter. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1916. Field Training. All right, everyone has seen the power of military boxing. Now, are you guys willing to learn from me? Chun Yu-Tian asked. Yes, After witnessing Chun Yutian's power with their own eyes, who wouldn't be willing to learn? In fact, military boxing was indeed powerful, but it depended on the person using it. If Chun Yutian wasn't a mystic class master, he wouldn't be able to send someone flying with just one punch. However, Chun Yutian was more than happy to use this method to motivate the students. Seeing was believing. His fight with the blonde and purple hair was more convincing than any explanation. He believed that the medical major would be one of the classes that studied military boxing the most seriously. Under Chun Yutian's guidance, everyone practiced enthusiastically. Even Wang Xingyan was sweating from exhaustion, but she was still very serious. "Fuck, Master Yu. Why are we so unlucky?" the blonde said helplessly as he ran. "This is weird. Any instructor is a mystic class master. Mystic class masters are so worthless." You coiling tiger frowned. "But a wise man knows better than a fight when the odds are against him. Let's run. We'll teach that Linny a lesson when we get back. I thought that boss spy wouldn't be around during the military training, and I wanted to discuss Lin Yi a little. What a lucky bastard," the purple hair said. However, as soon as the purple hair finished speaking, Chun Yutian scolded. "What are you three mumbling about? You seem to be very energetic. Add another 100 laps." Chun Yutian glanced at you coiling tiger. Although this guy was only a golden class master, running a few hundred laps wouldn't tire him out, so he added another 100 laps for them. You coiling tiger and the others groaned in their hearts, but there was nothing they could do. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days passed. The next program was field training. This was one of the most important programs in the military training, and it was also the toughest training. This was a test of everyone's ability to survive in the wild. Early in the morning, a few buses brought all the biology students to the foot of a mountain about 50 kilometers away from the army camp. This was a nameless mountain range, not far from the border. The training this time was for 3 people to form a group and go up the mountain to find a small flag at a designated location. Because each flag was placed in a different position, each flag had a GPS positioning device, and each team would be randomly given a GPS receiver. Only by following the coordinates on the receiver could they find the flag, and the first 3 teams to find the flag would each receive 2 extra points as a reward. The training would last for 2 days, starting from this morning and ending tomorrow night. The teams that did not find the flag would only have 1 military training credit deducted. Although this training looked very simple, with the GPS coordinates indicating, how difficult would it be to actually find it? This mountain was not a tourist attraction. There were no ready-made paths at all. Although the mountain walls were not steep, the forest was still covered with jungles. It was obviously not an easy task to pass through the layers of jungles to find the target. Moreover, the location of each flag was different. There was no chance of working together in such a big mountain. They could only rely on the 2 people in the same team to find the flag. Chun Yutian taught the students some essential knowledge of survival in the wild. Although there weren't any beasts on the mountain, most of the students grew up in the city. They didn't have any survival experience in the wild. It would be bad if something happened. However, just in case, Chun Yutian still had a backup plan. There's a red switch behind this GPS coordinate device. This is an emergency warning switch. If you guys really meet with danger on a mountain, just flip this switch and we will know your coordinates. The rescue team will rush to the scene immediately. Chun Yutian said, "Of course, if you don't meet with danger and just randomly flip the switch, I will also cancel your point for this field training. I hope everyone can cooperate with each other, and the 3 of you must learn to support each other. I don't want any of you to fall behind. If any of you fall behind, no matter if you find the flag or not, your points will be deducted directly." Everyone was worried when they heard that they had to go up the mountain alone to find the flag, but with this emergency switch, there was no problem. As for falling behind, no one thought about it. No one could leave their classmate behind. All right, next, students from all classes form groups of 3. Come here to collect the GPS, compressed biscuits, drinking water, medical kit, and camping supplies, Chun Yutian said. The number of people in Lin Yi's class wasn't a multiple of 3. There were 2 extra people, so Lin Yi didn't hesitate and formed a group with Xinyan. Normally, They would find an extra student from another class to form a group, but Chen Yuqian knew how strong Lin Yi was. Lin Yi could carry Sun Yan up the mountain without a problem, so he agreed without hesitation. After all the groups had collected their things, everyone prepared to go up the mountain under Chen Yuqian's orders. However, not long after they went up the mountain, they didn't have anyone in the same direction. Their flags weren't in the same position, and they were scattered all over the place. The mountain was big and tall, and very few people were willing to take detours with others. Most of them chose the straight distance on the GPS. However, on a mountain like this, even if it was a straight distance, it was impossible to walk in a straight line. After all, there were some rocks and trees that had to be detoured. Sun Yan was a little embarrassed as she looked at Lin Yi carrying all the luggage. Lin Yi, can you share some of this with me? Most groups had 3 guys, and there wasn't much to share even if there was more. But Lin Yi's group was small to begin with, and Sun Yan was a girl, so the heavy burden fell on Lin Yi's shoulders. It's fine, these aren't heavy at all. Just maintain your stamina. If you collapse from exhaustion, I'll have to carry you as well. Won't that be more tiring? Lin Yi smiled. Oh, Sun Yan blushed a little. She didn't know why, but she was looking forward to it. She didn't know when it started, but Sun Yan was getting used to the feeling of Lin Yi beside her. It had only been a few days, but she felt like she was relying on him. Sun Yan didn't know if this feeling was good or bad, but she didn't reject it. It was the first time in her life that she was this close to a boy. She was surprised that she didn't hate Lin Yi at all. Chapter 1917. No other meaning. Sun Yan was a quiet person, and she'd never fallen for a man before. She even had a natural repulsion towards men, and the reason for that was her 2 uncles being too evil. They'd never liked her since she was a child, and that had given her a bad impression of other men. But she'd never felt that way since she'd met Lin Yi. Perhaps it was because of the chance encounter on the train, and she'd felt pity for him when she saw him getting tricked. She'd been surprised to find out that it wasn't Lin Yi who'd been tricked, but the scammers. She'd been curious about what Lin Yi was like. The second time they'd met was in the business district of Songshan. She'd gotten into some trouble, and Lin Yi had taken care of it easily. From that moment on, Sun Yan felt that Lin Yi was a good friend. But the time they truly opened their hearts to each other was that time on the plane, when she'd been feeling down. She'd told him a lot about her life and worries, and from then on, they'd become closer than just normal friends. They could be considered good friends now. Step by step, Sun Yan realized that Lin Yi was a good person, and a good one at that. But thinking about it, Lin Yi might be a good person in her eyes, but in the eyes of the Xiao family, Lin Yi was a super bully. The 2 climbed for about 1 kilometer, and Sun Yan was starting to run out of stamina. It had been easier at the start, but now it was getting more and more difficult. There were branches, leaves, and mud everywhere, and it slowed them down quite a bit. Of course, if it weren't for Sun Yan, Lin Yi would have been able to find Xiao Qi and come back with ease. This sort of jungle route was a piece of cake for Lin Yi, after all. Back in the primeval forest in Africa, a place full of wild beasts, snakes, swamps, poisonous plants, and bugs, Lin Yi was still able to run like he was flying. Let's rest if you're tired, Lin Yi said after finding a relatively clean spot. Ah, it's okay, I can still hold on. Sun Yan didn't want to rest so soon. How long would they be able to find Xiao Qi if they kept resting? It's okay. The scenery here is beautiful. Just take it as a view, Lin Yi said with a smile. Look at the maple leaves all over the mountains. How beautiful. As far as Lin Yi was concerned, if he couldn't find it in the end, he'd just run over and take the flag back, and that would count as completing the mission. As for the top 3, Lin Yi didn't really care about them. Boss Bai had already guaranteed that he'd be able to graduate smoothly, so why would he need credits? Boss Bai was the boss in the Faculty of Medicine. With his promise, even the principal would not say anything. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Sun Yan sat down as well after hearing Lin Yi's words. She couldn't help but think of a poem as she looked at the red leaves. Far away on the cold mountain, there is a house in the depths of the clouds. Stop to love the maple forest at night. The frost leaves are redder than flowers in February. It was just a random poem, but Sun Yan's face reddened when she said it out loud. The third line of the poem, stop and sit in love with the maple forest, had been changed by some bored people to stop and sit in love with the maple forest to describe car vibrations. Sinyan had just been on campus 2 days ago. Sinyan had read it on campus 2 days ago. I'm just saying, I don't mean anything by it, Sinyan added. Lin looked at Sinyan, confused. What's wrong? What do you mean by nothing by it? Sinyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she looked at Lin Yi's face. Was she overthinking things? Lin, he hadn't thought of all this, but she couldn't just explain it to him. Lin, he hadn't thought of all this, and it wouldn't be good if she explained it like that. It's nothing. Nothing. Lin frowned as he thought back to what Sinyan had said. You said stop? Lin, he had been on campus when he was looking into the school's affairs. He'd seen someone tampering with the poem on QQ, but Sinyan was referring to this. No, I didn't. Why are your thoughts so impure? Sinyan's face reddened. Wasn't she just making him even more curious after saying that she didn't have anything to do with it? It would have been better if she hadn't reminded him, but he remembered now. Lin, he shrugged helplessly. You're the one who said it first. All right, I'm done resting. Let's keep going, Sinyan said, changing the topic. With that, she stood up and started walking. Lin, he smiled faintly. Sinyan was quite an interesting character. She didn't look like she didn't belong to the world, but she was a little cold in front of people she wasn't familiar with. Once they got to know each other, her personality would become more cheerful. She was similar to the Miss in this regard, but not exactly the same. The Miss was cold on the outside but warm on the inside, but she wouldn't be as quiet as Sinyan. They walked for a while, and it was almost noon. Lin, he took out a pack of biscuits from his bag. Hungry? Do you want to eat something first? I'm not that hungry yet. Maybe we can wait a bit longer? Sinyan was afraid that it wouldn't be enough. She'd looked at other people's GPSs before, and none of them had a GPS as far as the one she was holding. This was practically the end of the mountain, and they'd have to climb over the other side of the mountain to find the flag. Sinyan didn't know why she was so unlucky to get a GPS like this. She didn't want to waste food. Perhaps she and Lin, it would be the last group to complete the mission. In fact, Yuqian gave her this GPS on purpose. From his point of view, it was safer to give the furthest coordinate to Lin Yi. With Lin Yi's skills, it was a piece of cake for him to get the red flag. It's fine, the two of us got a bag of supplies too, and it's enough for 3 people. Lin Yi smiled as he tossed a bag of biscuits to Sinyan. Then, let's eat a little. Sinyan was hungry when she saw the food. If Lin Yi didn't take it out, she might be able to hold on for a bit longer. The two found a clean place and sat down. They ate some biscuits and drank some water before continuing their journey. After eating, Sinyan recovered a lot of her strength. However, the distance to the destination was too far. They walked for another 4 hours, and they were only halfway there. Lin Yi sighed when he saw that Sinyan was starting to run out of stamina. We're at least 20 kilometers away from our destination in a straight line. We need to get there before nightfall, or we won't be able to make it back in time for the training mission tomorrow. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1918. It's all my fault. I got a GPS that's so far away. I've seen other people's GPS. Some of them are very close, but the total distance is less than 20 kilometers. Sinyan smiled bitterly. Her one-way trip was equivalent to someone else's round trip. Lin Yi, naturally, knew that Yuqian did it on purpose. Only he had the ability to carry someone this far, so he left the most difficult part to him. Of course, there was another GPS that was just as difficult as Lin Yi's. It was in the opposite direction of Lin Yi, at the end of the mountain range. They had to cross the mountain as well. But Yuqian threw the GPS to Tiger Right and the other 2. It was a piece of cake for these 3 practitioners to get there. Lin Yi was an Earth class, but even with Sinyan, he might not be as fast as the 3 of them. It'll be fine with me here. If worst comes to worst, I'll carry you, Lin Yi smiled nonchalantly. I'll hold on a little longer. Sinyan hesitated and gritted her teeth. Although it would be easy for Lin Yi to carry her, Sinyan was shy and didn't want to risk it. Also, she was afraid that Lin Yi would be too tired. Lin Yi nodded, but after seeing how tired Sinyan was, he reached out his hand to her. Sinyan hesitated but still held Lin Yi's hand. This was the first time a guy held her hand, but it wasn't because they were in love, but because they were teammates helping each other. Xin Yan knew that Lin Yi wouldn't have any ulterior motives. He just wanted to help her, that's all. But although Xin Yan said that in her heart, her hand was still a little stiff. Her palms were sweaty from holding Lin Yi's hand not long ago. Lin Yi smiled, feeling Xin Yan's nervousness. We're teammates now. Xin Yan paused for a second, but smiled and nodded. Yeah, we're comrades in arms. The knot in Wang Xinyan's heart was unraveled, and her grip on Lin Yi's hand tightened. She didn't feel nervous anymore, but a comfortable sense of security replaced it. It was as if she had nothing to fear as long as she held onto his hand, and all difficulties were nothing more than floating clouds. Lin Yi stumbled along the way for another 10 kilometers before the sky darkened. Dark came early in late autumn, and it was already 6 in the evening. Lin Yi didn't have any obstacles in his way, but Xin Yan was a girl, and it was obvious that she was a little afraid. When carrying out a mission in the primeval forest, Lin Yi would usually choose to act at night. There was a saying that went, "The night is dark and the wind is strong, and the night is the night to kill. Let me carry you." Lin Yi looked at the coordinates on a GPS. The two of them had already passed the peak and were now going down the mountain towards their destination. The old saying was right. It was easy to go up the mountain, but difficult to go down the mountain. It was hard to go up the mountain, but it was less dangerous. It was easy to go down a mountain, but it was easy to lose your footing. Of course, this was no problem for an Earth-class practitioner like Lin Yi. He wouldn't die even if he slid down the mountain. But it wasn't the same for Xin Yan. Going down the mountain was harder than going up, especially since the sky was already dark. She didn't dare to walk too fast. That was why Lin Yi suggested carrying Xin Yan on his back. Xin Yan was hesitating. They were less than 10 kilometers away from their destination, but it was all the way down the mountain. If she kept walking like this, it would be late at night. If the two of them rested for the night, they wouldn't be able to wake up at noon the next day. They wouldn't be able to make it back in time. Come on, my comrade. Lin Yi hung his backpack in front of his chest and squatted down. Xin Yan heard Lin Yi and didn't resist anymore. She wrapped her arms around Lin Yi's neck and laid on top of Lin Yi. But when the softness of her chest pressed against Lin Yi, Xin Yan remembered that she wasn't wearing a bra. Didn't that mean that she was lying on Lin Yi's back? But thinking about it, a normal person's back shouldn't be very sensitive. Lin Yi shouldn't feel anything. She didn't know that Lin Yi wasn't a normal person, but a special one. He was an Earth-class practitioner, and practitioners had the most flexible control over their body parts. That was why when Xin Yan laid on top of Lin Yi reacted. Fortunately, Xin Yan was behind him, and the sky was dark. She couldn't see his reaction at all. Otherwise, Lin Yi would be embarrassed. Xin Yan thought about how Lin Yi's backpack was hanging in front of him, and she wanted to help Lin Yi carry it, but then she remembered that she was still on Lin Yi's back. Even if she carried the backpack, she'd be putting the weight on Lin Yi's back. What difference would that make? Xin Yan thought that Lin Yi would be walking very slowly with her on his back, but when she looked at the trees in front of her, she realized that not only did Lin Yi not slow down, he was walking even faster than before. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was walking like he was flying. What surprised Xin Yan the most was that Lin Yi didn't have the feeling that she had. His steps were very steady, and he didn't miss a single step. Could it be that Lin Yi had been accommodating her all this time, and that was why he was walking so slowly? Xin Yan felt even more ashamed at the thought. In fact, even if Lin Yi closed his eyes, he could still walk like he was flying, and he could see more clearly than with his eyes open. Although he felt the softness on his back, Lin Yi's attention quickly shifted to other places. What should he do with Miss and Shu? With their personalities, they might not be in a group with others. They weren't practitioners, and they were girls. Would they be in danger if they went up the mountain? However, phones weren't allowed to be used here, and they were locked in a cabinet in the barracks. Even if Lin Yi wanted to contact Miss, it was impossible. He could only ask Chen Yuqian to take care of Mississippi. But thinking about it, with Yushu around, Chen Yuqian wouldn't give them complicated tasks. Finally, Lin Yi arrived at his destination. It had to be said that Lin he had been moving very fast this way. He'd covered 10 kilometers in less than half an hour, and this was under Lin Yi's deliberate control. He didn't want to scare Sun Yan too much. Normally, he'd only run for 10 minutes, but Lin Yi didn't want to scare Sun Yan. Sun Yan was too tired, and she fell asleep on Lin Yi's shoulder. It was a comfortable and safe feeling, as if she had forgotten all her worries when she laid on Lin Yi's broad shoulder. Although it was only half an hour, Sun Yan still slept soundly. Chapter 1919. Lin Yi's sudden stop woke Sun Yan up. She didn't know how long she slept for, but when she opened her eyes and saw the flag not far from her, she woke up immediately. "We're here. We're here already?" Sun Yan couldn't believe it. Lin Yi had been carrying her for so long, and they're already here? "You're awake." Lin Yi knew that Sun Yan was asleep, and Lin Yi was the first to notice her waking up. I'm sorry. I'm too tired and fell asleep," Sun Yan said apologetically. "There's nothing to be sorry about." Lin Yi smiled. "That's how it should be. Rest up, and we'll continue our journey tomorrow." After putting Sun Yan down, Lin Yi took the flag and put it in his bag before setting up the tent. In an SUV at the foot of the mountain, Chun Yuqian and a few other warriors were staring at a computer screen. When Yuqian saw the GPS in Lin Yi's hand coincide with the flag coordinates, he knew that they had arrived at their destination. Yuqian let out a sigh of relief. Although Lin Yi was slower than Pan, Hu, and the others, Lin Yi was carrying a girl. However, in the last 10 kilometers, Lin Yi's speed was very fast. Yuqian guessed that Lin Yi was carrying Sun Yan. "Lin Yi, why don't I help you? You should eat something too. Carrying me on your back must be tiring, right?" Sun Yan said as she watched Lin Yi assembling the tent. "It's fine, you eat first. You've never done this before, and it'll take a lot of time to assemble it according to the blueprint," Lin Yi said as he moved the parts of the tent. Sun Yan was startled. Didn't he look at the blueprint? But when she took a closer look, Lin Yi really didn't look at the blueprint. It was folded on the side, and Lin Yi didn't even open it. "You've assembled it before?" Sun Yan was surprised. "And these military tents are assembled the same way. I used to do it all the time." Lin Yi sighed. It was as if he had returned to those days of war, camping with his teammates every night, assembling the tents. Pangolin was the most enthusiastic when it came to assembling the tents, and sleeping was his favorite thing to do. Lin Yi's heart sank at the thought of Pangolin. He still hadn't found a culprit who killed Pangolin. Although Lin Yi had destroyed the common house Yu, they were just accomplices, not the mastermind. The mastermind should be the organization called Red Conscious. Although Lin Yi had killed 2 important members of Red Conscious, it was far from enough. Lin Yi's goal was to destroy the whole family. Only by destroying this organization would he be able to vent his hatred. He thought of Ying Ziyu, wondering how she was doing. According to Faubert, she and Chun Shi both got into Songshan's first school, but Chun Shi reached the minimum requirement to be a free student, and Ying Ziyu barely reached the minimum requirement to be a self-funded student. But with Faubert there, Ying Ziyu didn't have to pay. Pengzhan Industries wasn't in trouble yet, so Faubert still had the absolute right to speak. Even after Housen took over, they wouldn't pursue something as small as this. They didn't have the time to. This time, Lin Yi planned to go visiting Ziyu and see how she was. Lin Yi cared about this girl quite a bit, and the reason was that she was Pangolin's sister. In the past, Sun Yan was curious. "You used to assemble these?" "I used to." Lin Yi smiled bitterly, but for some reason, he didn't hide anything from Sun Yan. "In the past, my life and yours were 2 different worlds. Perhaps it was because of Lin Yi's trust in Sun Yan, or perhaps Lin Yi didn't need to hide anything with his current strength. Those enemies of his weren't enemies to Lin Yi anymore, and Lin Yi wasn't afraid of their revenge. Lin Yi was a golden class back then, so he was afraid that his old enemies would come looking for him. But now that Lin Yi was an Earth class, the enemies he faced were all at least Mystic class. There was no point in hiding it anymore. Sun Yan paused. "You mean before you came to Songshan?" "Something like that. That time when I met you on the train was the beginning of my assimilation into this city." Lin Yi nodded. Sun Yan didn't ask what Lin Yi did before. Everyone had their secrets, and she didn't want to put Lin E in a difficult position. Let's eat something and rest. Okay. Lin E put the last part of the tent in place. The tent was now complete. Lin E and Xinyan sat in front of the tent, opening a pack of compressed biscuits under the moonlight. Xinyan was hungry, but she didn't eat too much, which surprised Lin E. You want to eat more? Xinyan blushed. It's not convenient to go to the bathroom here. I don't want to eat too much. We're deep in the forest. Just find a random place. Lin E smiled. It's fine. Eat more. We still have a long way to go tomorrow. Lin E tried to persuade her, but Xinyan still didn't eat too much. She drank quite a bit of mineral water, though. The two of them had brought a lot of water. Perhaps Xinyan was trying to help Lin E lighten up, and drinking water could fill up their stomachs. I'm full, let's rest. Xinyan took a deep breath. The air here is so good. Yeah, there's no noise and waste from a city. If we weren't in a rush, this would be a good place for a vacation. Lin E said, Yeah, let's rest. Xinyan nodded. She was about to enter the tent when she saw that Lin E wasn't moving. Lin E, aren't you coming to rest with us? You go, I'll be fine outside. Lin E didn't enter the tent. It's fine. Didn't we sleep together back in the barracks? Xinyan said, seeing that Lin E wasn't feeling comfortable. It wasn't that there were a lot of people, but now it's just the two of us. Lin E was worried that Xinyan would be embarrassed, but Xinyan was being more generous. I trust you. Xinyan lowered her head, not saying anything else. She was actually asking a guy to sleep with her. It would have been inconceivable in the past, but now it was natural. Okay. Lin E nodded after a bit of hesitation. Chapter 1920. Wang Xinyan's scent was beneficial to his training, so Lin E didn't want to waste this opportunity. He might not get another chance like this when he got back to school. Sleeping together in the barracks with other people was considered a group activity, but now that Lin E and Wang Xinyan were in the same tent, the atmosphere was a little awkward, but this scene gave Lin E a familiar feeling. It was also in a tent with a beautiful and gentle girl. Lin E seemed to have experienced something similar. Was it Ning? Lin E shook his head. They were in a cave, not in a tent. But in the depths of his memory, it seemed like today had happened before. Was it a past life? Or was it a dream? Or was it fate between him and Wang Xinyan? If it was the latter, then it was possible. They were fated to be together, sitting in the same seat a few times, and now they were in the same bed. How many times could there be such a coincidence in life? Are you asleep? Wang Xinyan's words interrupted Lin Yi's thoughts, bringing Lin E back to reality. No, what? Lin E asked. I'm a little scared. It's so quiet here. Wang Xinyan entered the tent and felt that the surroundings were eerily quiet. She was in the barracks with her classmates, and there were soldiers patrolling outside. It had never been this quiet. You'll get used to it. This mountain is a dead mountain. There aren't any beasts, but safe. Lin E said, some of the mountains are not quiet, but they're even scarier at night. What Lin E said was the truth. The night in the tropical forest was the scariest. Not only did they have to be on guard against enemies, but they also had to be on guard against all kinds of beasts and poisonous insects. Here, however, there was no danger at all. Can you talk to me? Wang Xinyan was tired, but she didn't sleep too much. She remembered that Lin E wasn't asleep yet, so she said apologetically, right, you haven't slept yet. Why don't you rest first? Don't worry about me. I'm a cultivator. I'm fine even if I don't sleep. Lin E shook his head and smiled. Lin E, what do you think we should pursue in life? Xinyan had been lost for a while now, not knowing the meaning of life. Was she just going to be a sacrifice for her family? Everyone has their own pursuits. I can't say for sure. Lin E was a little puzzled as to why Xinyan would ask such a profound question. Then what is your pursuit? Xinyan regretted asking the question. I'm sorry, I was just asking randomly. It's fine if you don't want to tell me. Once a long time ago, I also asked myself what my pursuit and goal was. But during that period of time, I was very confused. I didn't know what I was pursuing and what my goal was. Every day, I seemed to be doing things that I didn't like, but I had to do them. Lin E said, at that time, I really didn't know what I was pursuing, and I didn't know if I would spend the rest of my life in such a muddle. What happened after that? Xin Yan was a little surprised. Lin, he had that kind of feeling in time. After that, I came to Songshan, where I had my own love, my own friends. I wanted to protect them, to give them a better life. That was my pursuit and goal. Lin Yi said, only by becoming stronger can I achieve all of that. I see. Then I'm a little envious of you. Xin Yan smiled bitterly. I've never had many friends since I was young, and I've never fallen for a guy before. I don't know what true love is, and I don't have any close friends either. I'm not your friend? Lin, he asked with a smile. No, of course you are. I think I've found it. I've said a lot of things in front of you, things I've never done before. Xin Yan smiled. But you don't need me to protect you. You're the one protecting me instead. Friends help each other, of course. There's no rule that says who has to protect who. Lin Yi said, yeah, but is there really such a thing as pure friendship between a guy and a girl? Xin Yan asked all of a sudden. Lin Yi blinked. He was about to say that there was, but wasn't there one between him and her? But he shook his head inwardly. Pure? He'd had thoughts when he saw Xin Yan naked, and he'd had a physiological reaction when he felt the softness of her breasts. Was that pure? Lin Yi couldn't help but have a reaction when he smelled the scent on Xin Yan's body. It was a good thing that the tent was dark, and even with the moonlight, they could only see each other's faces clearly. Xin Yan had a weird expression on her face as she looked at Lin Yi's stunned face. She turned her body sideways, wanting to chat more comfortably with Lin Yi, but something hard was pressing down on her. You brought him sausages? Xin Yan asked subconsciously, but after she said that, she immediately realized that something was wrong. She also knew what she had grabbed. Her face immediately turned red, and she quickly let go of her hand. She turned around and snorted. Sure enough, pervert. That's a normal reaction. Lin Yi smiled bitterly, a little helpless. We're so close, and you smell so good. Xin Yan's face reddened even more at Lin Yi's mention of her scent. I'm sleepy. I fell asleep. Lin Yi didn't know what to say. He shook his head and calmed himself down before channeling the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. Xin Yan waited for a while and felt a little apologetic when she saw that Lin Yi wasn't talking. She'd been in biology classes before, and she knew that this was a normal reaction from Lin Yi. He didn't do it on purpose, and it would have been a problem if he hadn't. But she didn't want to apologize, and so she fell asleep. Xin Yan woke up in the latter half of the night. She'd drunk too much water earlier, and her body was reacting. She wanted to go to the bathroom, but it was pitch black outside. She hesitated for a moment before reaching out to touch Lin. Lin, what's wrong? Lin Yi asked, opening his eyes. Lin Yi opened his eyes all of a sudden, not the slightest bit sleepy on his face. Xin Yan jumped. You're not asleep? Target equals _blank. Chapter 1921. Oh, I'm resting. There aren't many people here. I'm afraid something might happen. Lin Yi said, not bothering to explain about his training. Other practitioners needed to sleep, after all. Only the art of dragon mastery allowed him to train in the jade space without sleeping. Xin Yan felt a little moved. Lin Yi didn't sleep because he was afraid of danger. Xin Yan felt a little embarrassed at the thought. She'd called him a pervert before. If he was a pervert, why didn't he do something to her when she was asleep? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have called you that. Xin Yan said, call me that? Since when did you curse me? Lin Yi didn't know what Xin Yan was talking about. Are you dreaming or something? No, it was before I slept. I called you a pervert. Xin Yan said, a little embarrassed. Oh, that it's nothing. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. All right, why did you call me? Xin Yan only remembered her goal after Lin Yi's reminder. I drank too much water, and I wanted to go out, but I'm a little scared. I see. Let's go. I'll stay with you. Lin Yi sat up, but realized that Xin Yan might misunderstand if he said that. I mean, I'll be watching you from afar. Ugh. I don't mean watching you. I mean guarding you. Lin Yi realized that the more he said, the more ambiguous it got. He might as well not say it. Okay. Xin Yan understood what Lin Yi meant. She walked out of the tent first, blushing a little. Xin Yan looked left and right. She and Lin Yi had chosen a flat, empty space. It was precisely because of this that Lin Yi chose this place. There really wasn't anything to hide in if they wanted to go to the bathroom. Xinyan had no choice but to run towards the forest. She ran for a few hundred meters before disappearing into a thicket. Lin Yi followed slowly, but didn't get too close. He only needed to sense where Xinyan was. Lin Yi didn't use his consciousness to sense where Xinyan was, either. He'd be able to see her clearly that way. Xinyan was in a hurry, but Lin Yi wasn't far from her. Wouldn't he be able to hear her if she were to make a sound that could be heard in the silence of the night? Xinyan couldn't pee at the thought of that embarrassing, shushing sound. Lin Yi waited for a long time, but didn't hear any movement from Xinyan. It was a little strange, but he didn't want her to feel awkward, so he didn't ask or walk over. Instead, he entered the jade space and used his consciousness to sense what was going on in the distance. He saw Xinyan squatting there with a blushing face. Lin Yi quickly looked away, and just as Lin Yi was about to retract his gaze, he saw two people about 20 meters in front of Xinyan. Two people in camouflage clothes. They didn't stand out in the dark of the forest, but Lin Yi could see them clearly with his consciousness. One of them was a Chinese, and the other was a foreigner with blonde hair. What were they doing here in the middle of the night? Thinking of this, Lin Yi didn't retract his divine sense, but locked onto these two people. "Audie, I brought the goods. Do you have the money ready?" It was the Chinese who spoke. The two seemed to have just met. "Baldy, why are you here? Wasn't it brother who delivered the goods before?" Audie recognized the man, but it wasn't the person he knew before. It was one of the people he knew, so he asked cautiously. "Brother has been sent to the Fire Wolf Gang for a new mission. I'll be taking over here." The man called Baldy said proudly. "From now on, I'll be in charge of the border drug trade." "Oh, then I'll call you Baldy Bro from now on. Congratulations." The foreigner spoke fluent Chinese. "Ha ha ha, you flatter me." Bald Wolf laughed. He was obviously happy about his promotion. Xinyan was nervous to begin with, and the sudden burst of laughter made her scream out of reflex. Baldy's voice was very soft, and Lin Yi could only tell what they were saying through his lips. The laughter, however, was a little too loud in this quiet mountain. Xinyan didn't think that there would be other people around, and the voice clearly wasn't Lin Yi's. It was hoarse and unpleasant, and it was a man's voice. Xinyan screamed subconsciously, but someone covered her mouth before she could finish. Xinyan was even more shocked. She just heard the laughter, and now she was being kidnapped? But Lin Yi's voice rang in her ears. "Don't worry, it's me." Xinyan relaxed when she heard it was Lin Yi. But now that she relaxed, all the pee she'd been holding in came out. Lin Yi was kneeling in front of her, covering her mouth, and her pee was all over Lin Yi's pants. Xinyan was embarrassed, but she couldn't control herself. She wanted to dig a hole in the ground and hide in it. How embarrassing was this? She'd let Lin Yi see her upper body, and now he'd seen her lower body, and now she'd peed all over him? But although Lin Yi saw Xinyan pee all over himself, it was a rather romantic scene, but Lin Yi wasn't in the mood to peek. His attention was on the two people not far away. Lin Yi wasn't a nosy person, and what these two were doing here had nothing to do with him. But when Atiti mentioned Debro, it caught Lin Yi's attention. Wasn't Jangwen's brother in Jianda called Debro? Just when Lin Yi wanted to confirm if this Debro was in Jianda, the bald wolf's words confirmed Lin Yi's suspicions. Since the wolf mentioned the fire wolves, then Debro had to be in Jianda. Since it was related to the fire wolves and in Jianda, Lin Yi didn't mind creating some accidents for these two. There were people and gangs that had deep grudges against him. Xinyan's scream caught Atiti's attention as well, but it was dark on the mountain, and he couldn't see far. Xinyan was squatting on the ground, and there were bushes in front of her. They couldn't see each other at all. "What's that sound?" Atiti asked. "Is it the border patrol?" Chapter 1922. That shouldn't be the case. I've already asked around. These days are the military training days for Donghai Industry University, and the border guards are using this mountain as a training ground. There's no way they would be patrolling at this time. Baldy frowned. Donghai Industry University's military training wasn't a secret, and Baldy didn't need to ask around to get the information. It was absolutely true. Then could it be that there are students training nearby? Audie asked. That's impossible. The Red Conches, have been doing this for years, and we know the range of the training every year. This place is too far, and it's impossible for the students to come and go in 2 days. Those students aren't us, so how could they walk this far? Baldy shook his head. Maybe we heard wrongly. There's an owl nearby, and it sounded similar to the sound just now. If the border guards were here, then it would be a gunshot. And I wouldn't be able to stand here and talk. You're right. Audie nodded after not hearing any strange noises for a long time. But at that moment, the sound came again. The sound came from Lin Yi's mouth, mimicking the sound of an owl. Fuck, it really is an owl. That scared me to death. Audie heard it clearly this time and shook his head. No matter what, let's hurry up and trade. The goods are here. Check them. Baldy placed a black suitcase in front of Audie. Here, this is the money. Check it too. Audie handed a suitcase to Baldy. The two were old partners, and they didn't need to be too cautious. They checked the contents of the suitcase and closed it after finding nothing wrong. Lin Yi saw the contents of the suitcase clearly. One was filled with drugs, and the other was filled with US dollars. Lin Yi wasn't interested in the drugs, but he was interested in the US dollars. Although he had extorted $2 billion from Jiang Wen, Lin Yi didn't have much to spend since Fatty Lai had to build his company. This suitcase of US dollars could help alleviate some of the financial pressure on Lin Yi. Most importantly, Lin Yi suddenly thought of Xiaoka from the orphanage. She probably needed money, right? With that in mind, Lin Yi decided that he was going to take advantage of the situation. He whispered into Xin Yan's ear. There's 2 bad guys. Stay here and don't move. I'll take care of them. Xin Yan wasn't scared anymore. All that was left was shyness. She nodded. It was only then that Lin Yi remembered that he was still covering Xin Yan's mouth. He quickly let go and walked over to the 2 drug dealers. However, the 2 drug dealers were still talking about something after the transaction. I say, Brother Bald Wolf, why are there fewer and fewer goods recently? We have a shortage over there. Can you increase the supply? Audie asked as he weighed the suitcase in his hand. Our original partner, House Yu, has some problems. Without the support of House Yu's masters, our authority in the Golden Triangle has been declining. Bald Wolf sighed. I've already talked to the boss. He'll talk to the higher-ups and see if they can send a few practitioners over. That way, we can regain our authority. All right, this is your gang's internal matter. I have no right to interfere. I'll be leaving first. I don't feel at ease staying at the border for another minute. Audie nodded and prepared to leave. Bald Wolf took the money and prepared to leave as well. However, before the 2 of them could take a step, they groaned and fell to the ground. These people weren't even practitioners, and Lin Yi could knock them out without a sound. Lin Yi didn't kill them. Although it was easy for Lin Yi to kill these 2, Lin Yi still wanted to ask Bald Wolf a few questions. Lin Yi didn't want to force a confession out of someone like Baldy. He took out a couple of needles and stuck them into Baldy's head, waking him up as well. His eyes were a little glazed over. I'll ask you a few questions. Answer them one by one. Don't hide anything, Lin Yi said sternly. Yes. Bald Wolf seemed to have entered a hypnotic state. He had lost his consciousness. This method was taught to Lin Yi by his master. Although it was effective, it could only be used on low-level people. After all, a practitioner's will was extremely strong. Even golden-class practitioners had strong spiritual power. Lin Yi couldn't hypnotize them with this method. However, this method was the fastest and most effective way to deal with such a small fry. However, after using it, there would be a certain side effect, which was that the person would forget a part of their memory. This memory varied from person to person. The shortest would be 1 day, and the longest would be 4 to 5 days. Therefore, they would not remember being hypnotized at all. Lin Yi planned on using the same method on the foreigner, making them forget what happened recently. That way, he'd be able to take the box of dollars without anyone noticing. As for these 2, Lin Yi planned on handing them over to Chun Yutian for him, Yang Huaijuan, and Ling Shan to work together. After all, capturing so many drugs was a huge achievement. Lin Yi didn't mind letting these 2 use their full potential. It'd be a waste to just kill them. What's your name? What do you do? What organization do you belong to? Linny asked. I'm Tu Lang, Bald Wolf in the underworld. I'm in charge of the drug trade for Red Conches. Bald Wolf said. Where's the headquarters of Red Conches? How many people are there? Who's the boss? What's his relationship with the Fire Wolves? Linny asked. The headquarters of Red Conches is overseas. I don't know where it is. The one in China is just a branch, Bald Wolf said. Bald Wolf said the Red Conch branch is in Qing Run City. The first master is dead, and the second master has been arrested. Currently, the third master is in charge. I don't know the third master's name because everyone calls him Third Master. Our Red Conches and the Fire Wolves are brother gangs. We help each other, but I don't know the details. Lin Yi was surprised by Bald Wolf's words. He didn't expect Red Conch's headquarters to be overseas. He didn't even know where it was. The one in China was just a branch. According to what he said, the big boss that Feng Tianlong killed was just a person in charge of Red Conch's branch. Red Conches had a lot of resources. Is there a cultivator guarding the Red Conch? What's the highest level? Linny asked. The third boss is a practitioner himself. He's at the peak of the late phase of the mystic class. Other than him, there's only one master at the early phase of the golden class. Bald Wolf said. Red Conch's business is with House Yu. All the masters are from House Yu. Chapter 1923. Linny nodded. It seemed like this Red Conches wasn't that strong. The strongest was only a mystic class. Of course, this was only the strength of the branch. No one knew how strong the headquarters was. But Lin Yi didn't suspect that he was lying. Putting aside the fact that he couldn't lie in this situation, just for what he said to Autiti, it was obvious that House Yu was destroyed and Red Conch's drug business was affected as well. Their power in the Golden Triangle was reduced. Tell me the address of the Fire Wolf Gang's branch. Linny said, I don't know the address. I'm just the person in charge of the drug business in Donghai. Every time I go to a meeting, it's the Conch Bar in Qing Run City. That's a small base for the Red Conches, Baldy said. Conch Bar. Lin Yi was surprised. These Red Conches were quite daring. They made a bar and called it Conch Bar. Weren't they afraid of being exposed? But Lin Yi thought that no one would connect this Conch Bar with the Red Conches. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest place. This was probably the case. Who else is in charge of the drug business? Lin Yi continued. It used to be Brother Da. We used to work under the third head. Even when we were working with House Yu, he was the one who handled the whole thing. Now that he's in charge, he's still the one in charge, Baldy said. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. It seemed like Armadillo's revenge was on this third head in charge. This guy was the mastermind behind House Yu's collaboration. No wonder there was no news from the second head in charge when they captured him. He wasn't in charge of the drug trafficking. All right, you can sleep now. Lin Yi had asked everything he needed to ask. If he asked more, Baldy wouldn't know. He had limited knowledge. He was just a small character. As for Autiti, Lin Yi did the same, but Autiti was a foreign gang leader. Lin Yi wouldn't be able to get anything useful out of him. Lin Yi wasn't interested in the gang at all. He let Autiti go back to sleep. After that, Lin Yi walked toward Xinyan. Lin Yi poked the two with needles. They wouldn't wake up for at least 2 hours. Xinyan's heart tightened when she heard footsteps. She was so nervous that she forgot to pull up her pants. She was just squatting there. She was afraid that something would happen to Lin Yi, but Lin Yi and the two were talking softly. Xinyan couldn't hear them, and she didn't dare stand up. Lin, is that you? Xinyan said, suppressing her fear as the footsteps got closer. Yes, Xinyan, it's me. Lin Yi said as he walked up to Xinyan. What he saw stunned Lin Yi. What's wrong? Xinyan stood up, pausing at the look on Lin Yi's face. A gust of wind blew past, and Xinyan realized that she'd forgotten to pull up her pants. Embarrassed, she quickly pulled them up. I forgot. I know. I don't think you're trying to seduce me. Lin Yi joked. You. Xinyan blushed. She knew that Lin Yi was joking. She quickly changed the topic. Right, those people, they're knocked out, but I'm afraid we'll have to go back tonight. Lin Yi said. Oh. Xinyan nodded. All right, I've rested enough, and my stamina is back. I'll contact Instructor Chun. Maybe we don't have to walk back. Someone's going to pick us up. Lin Yi smiled. Right, your pants, Xin Yan said apologetically when she saw the wet patch on Lin Yi's pants. She'd puked on Lin Yi's pants, and now she'd peed on Lin Yi's pants. Did Lin Yi think she was a meddlesome girl? Oh, it's fine. There's no smell. I'll be fine after I dry it. Lin Yi didn't mind. Xin Yan was embarrassed and didn't say anything else. At the foot of the mountain, in the SUV, a soldier in charge of monitoring the coordinates saw the blinking on the screen. He immediately reported to Chen Yutian, who was taking a nap. Captain Chen, we have a situation. Oh, Chen Yutian woke up immediately. He looked at the screen, but the blinking coordinates stunned him. It was Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan's coordinates. Chen Yutian thought that any of the students who participated in the field training could be in trouble. Only Lin Yi wouldn't be in trouble. Lin Yi was an Earth class. It would be unbelievable if a jungle like this could stop Lin Yi, but it just had to be Lin Yi's coordinates. If something happened to Lin Yi, it would be a huge problem. Chen Yutian didn't dare to underestimate it. He quickly ordered, "Get the rescue helicopter ready. I'll go check it out myself." Yes. A soldier on standby received the order and went to get the helicopter ready. Chen Yutian quickly got out of the SUV and walked towards the helicopter. However, Chen Yutian refused everyone else to get on the helicopter. He was going to fly the helicopter alone to get Lin Yi. If Lin Yi was in danger, ordinary people wouldn't be able to help. Chen Yutian was the strongest here, and it was the safest for him to go alone. Although it was useless for him to go if it was something even Lin Yi couldn't handle, since Lin Yi sent out the signal. It meant that Lin Yi should be fine. To keep it a secret, Chen Yutian decided to go alone. The speed of the helicopter was much faster than walking. Soon, Chen Yutian got close to the coordinates. He saw Lin Yi's tent. There was an empty space near the tent, and Chen Yutian landed the helicopter without hesitation. However, what surprised Chen Yutian was that Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan were perfectly fine after he got off the helicopter. They were waiting for him at the tent, and under Lin Yi's feet, there were two strangers lying on the ground. He didn't know if they were dead or alive. Boss. Chen Yutian called Lin Yi boss when there were no outsiders around. Wang Xinyan looked at Chen Yutian in surprise, and then looked at Lin Yi. Instructor Chen called Lin Yi boss. What was going on? Although she was confused, she didn't ask. Yutian, there are two drug dealers here. They were trading, and I caught them. Lin Yi pointed at the two people on the ground. Chapter 1936. Back to school, what? Drug dealers? Chen Yutian's eyes widened in shock. He quickly ran over. Boss, what's going on? Why are there drug dealers here? It's like this, Lin Yi said, and told Chen Yutian about the drug dealers. Of course, he left out the part about Wang Xinyan go to the washroom. I used silver needles to deal with these two people, and I asked around about the people behind them. They're from the Red Conch organization, but they will have temporary amnesia. Perhaps they won't remember the trade. Chen Yutian nodded. He knew about Lin Yi's methods, and he knew why Lin Yi wanted to know about the Red Conch organization. He didn't ask much. Temporary amnesia didn't matter as long as these two were drug dealers. The details of the trade weren't important. This is the box of drugs, right? Chen Yutian looked at the suitcase on the ground and asked. Yes, you can bring him back, but he'll be working on this case with Huaijuan and Lingshan. They've just come to Donghai and solved this case. They're pretty stable now. Lin Yi said to Yutian. No problem. Chen Yutian nodded. He didn't even ask if there was cash. From Yutian's point of view, the drug dealers would transfer money over the phone. Even if there was cash, he wouldn't ask if it was taken away by Lin Yi. Boss, why don't you and sis-in-law Xinyan take the helicopter back? Your mission is considered complete, and you caught two drug dealers. If it wasn't for you not wanting to be famous, you could get a lot of points for this contribution. So you guys are the first to complete the mission. Okay, I want to go back too. Lin Yi nodded. Xinyan found it very weird that Instructor Chun was calling her sis-in-law, but she didn't go out of her way to correct him. Her relationship with Lin Yi was getting more and more beyond friendship. Lin Yi packed up quickly, and Chen Yutian came over to help him take down the tent. The two drug dealers were thrown into the car, and the helicopter started flying down the mountain. No one objected to the fact that Lin Yi and Xinyan took the first place. They all knew that Lin Yi's contribution alone was worth more than the first place's points, but Lin Yi kept a low profile and didn't want to announce it. Chen Yuqian called Huaijuan and told him to bring the two drug dealers back. Usually, the border guards would hand the drug dealers over to the local police for trial. Huaijuan was speechless when he heard that Lin Yi caught two drug dealers on the way up the mountain, but he was grateful that Lin Yi wanted him and Ling Shan to do something. He drove over the night and brought the two drug dealers away. As for the aftermath, Lin Yi and Yu Qian didn't have to worry about it. Huaijuan felt weird when he brought the drug dealers away. Lin Yi was too amazing. He just talked to him about the drug dealers and the red conch a few days ago, and he brought the drug dealers back just like that. Ling Shan said that as long as the case was handed to Lin Yi, there would be no case that couldn't be solved. Huaijuan was convinced that it was true. Huaijuan knew that Lin Yi was amazing, but he didn't expect him to be this amazing. Finding an enemy in the forest and finding a criminal in the city were two different things, and the methods of investigation were different as well. But for Lin Yi, it was the same. It was still early, and Yu Qian called for an off-road vehicle for Lin Yi and Xinyan to get in and rest. The car was spacious, and sleeping was no problem after putting down the seats. But Lin Yi's first thought was to have sex in the car. Xinyan thought of it as well, but she didn't say anything. She knew her relationship with Lin Yi very well, and although they did flirt a lot, they were actually innocent. Because of the drug dealers on the mountain, the following faculties canceled the field training and moved on to the next step, the military boxing competition. After the military training, everyone returned to school, and the freshman party was about to begin. The freshmen's first semester wasn't very stressful. There were no specialized classes, and most of the time was filled with activities. Military training, freshman party, student council election, extracurricular club registration, sports day, art festival, and so on. The freshman party of the medicine faculty was a big problem every year. The programs at the gala were generally produced by majors, not by classes. Therefore, a major usually had at least 5 classes. At the very least, they could come up with a program. However, the pharmaceutical department only had 1 class, and the number of people in that class was very small. If they had to come up with a program, this problem would fall on the shoulders of every class monitor. Bai Weitua even made a bet with Zhang Duopan. Whoever got the highest score in the freshman party would be able to pursue Himei Wei, and whoever got the lowest score would be automatically eliminated. Big Brother Lin, Xiaodao, Shangji, can you help me think of a way? As soon as the military training ended and they returned to the dormitory, Bai Weitua was anxious. He hadn't thought about it before, but when it really came, he realized how difficult it was to organize a program. You sing well, go and sing a solo. Song Xiaodao said helplessly, we don't have artistic cells. Asking us to help you think of a way is equivalent to harming you. Solo. Bai Weitua shook his head. Although his singing was very good, it wasn't particularly outstanding. If it was in a party with fewer people, such as a junior high school art festival, it was still possible to get a place. But on a university campus where there were many talented people, a solo had no special characteristics, and it was very difficult to get a place. Moreover, Bai Weitua also knew that in the school and the past freshman parties, it was usually a group program that won a place, not an individual program. As a freshman, being able to unite the group was a real ability, and individual ability was nothing. Then let's sing a duet. If you can sing, then sing. If you can't sing, then just harmonize or lip sync. Anyone could do it, Lin Yi said. Bai Weitua was stunned, but really, Lin Yi's move was a good one. This was because Bai Weitua had also seen some celebrity concerts. The celebrity was the main host in the front, and there was a choir at the back to help harmonize or sing a small part. If he was the main singer, and then let the students in the class go up to harmonize, this could be considered a group program. Thinking of this, Bai Weitua's eyes lit up. Then let's do it this way. I'll go back and talk to the students. Meng Yao, on the other hand, had a dark expression on her face. The school's BBS seemed to be telling the truth, and not only that, it said that Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan had sex in the gutter behind the barracks, and that Lin Yi had put his hand under Xinyan's shirt on the way to military training, and that Xinyan had even helped him do it with her mouth. But these were all hearsay, and there was no proof. Meng Yao would rather believe these rumors, because she didn't think that Lin Yi was such a perverted person. She and Shu had lived with him for so long, and Lin Yi hadn't done anything out of line. Even when they were naked, he didn't lose his mind. When he was with Tang Yun and Xiao Xiao, the most intimate thing he did was holding hands. He just met Wang Xinyan not long ago. How could he be this close? Shu, what's sex? How is that possible? If he wanted to have sex, he would have done a long time ago. Why would he wait until now? I think it's most likely Xinyan's pursuers who saw how close Lin Yi and Xinyan got, and started slandering them. Meng Yao said, even if that's not the case, Xinyan's still one of the prettiest girls in the first year. It's normal for there to be rumors about her. It's not impossible for people to start rumors like that. Didn't that little can say the same thing about you and her? Didn't you get an abortion? Oh, you're right. Yushu nodded. She was about to say something when she raised her head to see Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan getting into a sports car. She exclaimed, Yao Yao, isn't that Shield bro? Meng Yao's face turned green. She was just defending Lin Yi, and Lin Yi got into someone else's car. How could she accept this? But Meng Yao still said, maybe they're going to get something or take a break. Oh, I'll send Detective Holmes to investigate them. With that, Yushu ran over to the scene. Xinyan's sports car had a film around it, so if you didn't lie down in front of it, you wouldn't be able to see what was going on inside. Xinyan, on the other hand, was too shy to take off her clothes in front of Lin Yi, so Lin Yi had no choice but to start massaging her under her clothes. Xinyan couldn't help but moan in comfort. Lin Yi's massage technique didn't look special, but Xinyan had never felt so relaxed before. Xinyan's face reddened a little after that moaning. Why did that sound so weird? Was he doing something? But Lin Yi didn't seem to mind at all. He was still focused on massaging her. Xinyan, on the other hand, relaxed a little. She couldn't hold it in any longer and started moaning in comfort. Yushu couldn't see what was going on inside the car, so she could only lean her head against the car window and look inside. Xinyan's moans of comfort were heard before she could get a good look. She took a closer look and saw that Lin Yi's hand was moving around inside Xinyan's clothes, as if he was. Yushu was a little taken aback. Since when did Shield bro get this good? She definitely let him touch her when she got back. He was so focused on massaging Xinyan that he didn't even notice the person lying on the car's side. They were in the school's parking lot, after all, and there shouldn't be anyone peeking at them, right? Besides, the Jade wouldn't give any warnings, so there shouldn't be any danger. Yushu was one of Lin Yi's teammates. Anyway, the Jade wouldn't give any warnings even if it saw her coming. Yushu remembered her mission after a while, and quickly ran back to report to Meng Yao. Target equals _blank. Wang Xinyan didn't think that Meng Yao would apologize immediately after realizing her wrongdoing. This was out of her expectations. Although there was nothing going on between her and Lin Yi, letting a boy massage her body was a very ambiguous thing to do. She felt a little guilty. Xinyan would have never imagined letting a boy touch her body before, but it was so natural now that she was with Lin Yi. She felt like she was having an affair, as if she was a girl who didn't have any self-respect, and letting a boy touch her like that. Not only did she not feel conflicted, but it actually felt good. Xinyan knew that it was because of Lin Yi's skill in massaging, but it also proved that she didn't mind Lin Yi doing it. Even if Meng Yao were to scold her, Xinyan wouldn't say a word. It's nothing. I know Xiao Xiao, too. I'm just good friends with Lin. Xinyan explained subconsciously. And if that's the case, you guys can continue. Although Meng Yao felt that Lin Yi touching Xinyan's body was inappropriate, she didn't stop him when she thought that Lin Yi was treating a patient. After all, when she was poisoned, she took off her clothes and let Lin Yi treat her. And what was even more embarrassing was that she peed on Lin Yi's face. She and Lin Yi were even worse, but weren't she and Linny friends? What Meng Yao didn't know was that Xin Yan had already let Lin Yi see her naked, and that she peed on Lin Yi as well. Who knew what she would think if she knew? Oh, shield bro, I've got a cold too. You should touch Shu later, give her a massage. Yushu was curious why Xin Yan felt so good just now, even moaning happily. She wanted to give it a try. Shu. Meng Yao grabbed Shu's ear and pulled her to the side, closing the car door for Lin Yi and Xin Yan. Xin Yan was a little speechless at Yushu. Wasn't this girl a little too open? How could he say such a thing in public? But she was a girl who dared to love and hate, stronger than she was. Xin Yan couldn't help but smile bitterly at the thought of her own life and her engagement. With Meng Yao and Yushu outside, Xin Yan didn't dare to moan anymore. She bit her lips and endured the pleasure, continuing to enjoy Lin Yi's massage. She didn't know why, but Xin Yan felt a little excited. Was it because Meng Yao and Yushu were standing outside the car? Oh, Xin Yan's mind wandered, and she couldn't keep her mouth shut. She didn't want to hold it in any more, though. Once was the same thing, twice wasn't much. She'd get used to it after the third time. Because they were close, Xin Yan's moans traveled into Meng Yao and Yushu's ears. Yao Yao, listen, that Fox Wong seems to be having a good time. Yushu said, don't give people random nicknames. Meng Yao frowned. She knew that Xin Yan was moaning because of Lin Yi's massage, but was it really that good? Oh, Yushu said, but I think she's interested in Shield Bro. Xiao Xiao already told him to find a big wife, so why should we care? Meng Yao shook her head, remembering Xiao Xiao's words. Oh, even if he wants to find a big wife, we need to keep an eye on him. Even if Fox Wong wants to be Shield Bro's big wife, she'd have to please us first. We need to keep an eye on Xiao Xiao, Yushu said. I already told Grandma-san, and she's probably preparing it already, Meng Yao said. Right, Lin? Why are you still wearing the uniform from the military training? Oh, the previous set of clothes was dirty, and I didn't have time to wash it, so I didn't change it, Linny said. Meng Yao nodded and didn't say anything. The three got in the car, and Lin Yi drove back to the Shueshang district. As expected, when they got back to the villa, Grandma-san was busy in the kitchen. The fragrance from the kitchen made people salivate. Grandma-san is really good. Her cooking is even better than those chefs in the hotels. Meng Yao felt that it was really a happy thing to have Grandma-san as a housekeeper here. Linny nodded. Lin Yi was also very confused about this. Grandma-san was a scavenger. How could she have such cooking skills? This was really a strange thing. But the most important thing was that Grandma-san's memory of the past was a little blurry. She couldn't remember the past, so Lin Yi knew nothing about her background. But one thing was certain. From all the signs, Grandma-san should be a person with a story. But for some reason, she lost her memory. Although she lost her memory, she didn't lose her cooking skills. It was probably an instinct. Of course, Lin Yi didn't deliberately ask about Grandma-san's past, nor did he try to help her recover her memory. Everyone had their own secrets and difficulties, and he didn't want to delve into it. What if it was a memory that Grandma-san didn't want to remember? Shaking his head, Lin Yi called Faubert. Little E, have you gone back? Faubert's voice came from the other side of the phone. Faubert, we're back. We're in the villa in the Shueshang district. Linny said, where are you? I looked at the location of a few buildings that are being sold and took some pictures. I'm going to discuss with Mr. Chu to see if it's a suitable place to set up a branch company in Donghai City. Faubert said, it's almost done now. I'll go over now. You can go to the villa area in the Shueshang district. My Jeep is parked outside the villa. It's that one, Linny said. Okay, I'll go over now, Faubert said. After hanging up the phone, Grandma-san came out with a plate of spicy chicken and placed it on the table. It was really delicious. It made people salivate at first glance. Mr. Lin, Miss Chu, when will the guests arrive? There are also a few hot dishes. It's better to eat them while they're hot. Grandma-san asked. They'll be here soon. They're not guests. They're all family. It's the housekeeper from Songzhan City. Grandma-san, I told you before, Linny said. Ah, Grandma-san heard that it was Faubert. She suddenly blushed. She didn't know what to do. Just like that? From her point of view, Lin Yi just said it casually last time. She would forget about it after a few days. She didn't expect Lin Yi to bring it up again. Grandma's son didn't know what to do. She wasn't ready yet. Hee, it's just a meeting. There's no other meaning. Get to know each other first. You're both housekeepers. You need to get to know each other. Linny said, yeah, Grandma Sunday Faubert is actually a very good person. Ming Yao also added, in fact, if Faubert and Grandma Sun could be together, it would be a good thing. Not only would Faubert not be lonely, but Grandma Sun would also have a companion. Plus, they were all family. There wouldn't be any problems. But if it wasn't a coincidence, what did they mean by buying a villa next to his house? Especially when the beautiful girl glanced at him back then. He felt that something was wrong. Of course, maybe that glance was because he brought two beautiful girls into the real estate agency, and they wanted to buy a villa. Or maybe it was because they saw that he bought a villa, so they also bought a villa. They were a pair of rich siblings. In order to keep a low profile, they chose to rent a house. But when they saw their classmate buying a villa, they didn't care anymore. Similarly, they also bought a villa. This was the most reasonable explanation. The girls seemed to have noticed that someone was looking at them and looked over at Lin Yi, Meng Yao, and Yu Shu. She was a little surprised to see Lin Yi, Meng Yao, and Yu Shu, but she nodded at them and walked over. When the beautiful girl bought the villa, she only wanted to buy a villa that was closer to her house. She definitely didn't expect these two villas to be neighbors. Only when she moved in today did she realize that they lived next door. What a coincidence! She didn't expect to become neighbors. The beautiful girl said to Lin Yi and the others generously. What coincidence! Lin Yi said faintly, didn't you want to rent a house that day? Why did you buy a villa? I wanted to rent a house, but when I saw that you bought a villa, I was a little tempted. So I also bought a villa. The beautiful girl said, I just didn't expect to become neighbors. Lin Yi saw that the beautiful girl's surprise didn't seem to be fake. He was a little confused. Could it really be a coincidence? The beautiful girl's surprise was naturally not fake. She was surprised that the two villas were actually neighbors. So that's how it is. You are also students of Donghai Industry University? Lin Yi asked. Yes, my brother and I are both students. But after buying the villa, there was something at home that I didn't report. I took a day off to report tomorrow. Oh, Lin Yi nodded and didn't ask anymore. My name is Chu Meng Yao. She's Yu Shu, Donghai Engineering University's Economics Department. Meng Yao heard that the siblings were also students of Donghai Engineering University. She immediately had a good impression of them. They were from the same school. It would be easy to get along with them. She could even visit them when she had nothing to do. Ah, you're from the Economics Department. What a coincidence. My brother is also from the Economics Department. The beautiful girl said, I'm Han Jingjing. This is my brother, Han Xiao Xiao. I didn't expect them to be from the same department. Han Jingjing asked, You're not from the Economics Department? Han Jingjing said, No, I'm from the Biology Department. Han Jingjing said, It's just a small major. I'm afraid you haven't heard of the Medicine Department. Lin Yi frowned slightly. The Medicine Department was a bit too much of a coincidence. But after Lin Yi confirmed that the two were not practitioners, he didn't continue to ask. Some things were useless even if he suspected them. He could only wait and see. Meng Yao was a little confused. Why would a girl apply for the Medicine Department? Lin Yi was also a Medicine Department. What a coincidence. Ah, you too? Han Jingjing looked at Lin Yi in surprise. You also like to study herbs? Lin Yi nodded. That's great. Let's learn more from each other in the future. I like to study herbs too. Han Jingjing said happily, as if she had found a confidant. But before Lin Yi could say anything, a Bentley drove over. It was Faubert's car. Lin Yi nodded at Han Jingjing. After hearing Han Jingjing and her brother's names, he was even more sure that he didn't know these two people. Even when he was on missions before, he had never heard of these two people. Okay, we need to go tidy up the villa too, Han Jingjing said as she opened the trunk of the car and took out some blankets and daily necessities. It seemed like she was going to buy some things. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1928. This was one of the weakest points on the human body, and hitting it would cause a person to faint or even die. What Chi-Chi wanted to do was to hit it in one hit. Pong! A dull sound rang out, and Chi-Chi actually hit Naipeo's neck. Chi-Chi didn't dare stay long after the hit, and quickly retreated to the side. On the other side, Yubing wanted to keep the Zhuang brothers busy, but he realized that they didn't seem to have any intentions of doing anything. Evidently, they were very confident in Naipeo, but in Lin Yi's eyes, there was a flash of worry. After Chi-Chi hit Naipeo, he didn't seem to be affected at all, as if he wasn't affected at all. In the next moment, Lin Yi suddenly felt a strong wave of chi coming from his palms, rushing into his body and sending him flying. Lin Yi's body landed heavily on the ground, his organs churning, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. But as bad as it looked, his injuries weren't that serious. He'd used Naipeo's chi to fly out the moment he sensed that something was amiss. Otherwise, he'd be even more injured if he'd taken the attack head-on. You're not afraid of physical practitioners? Lin Yi wiped the blood from his mouth as he stood up from the snow, sighing. It seemed like his first plan had failed. Naipeo wasn't afraid of physical practitioners at all. You think I only know how to absorb chi from spiritual practitioners? Idiot! Naipeo looked at Lin Yi as if he was looking at an idiot. No wonder you came looking for trouble with me so confidently. You thought you had a trump card to deal with me? You must have eaten too many stupid pills. Who told you that physical practitioners could deal with me? If I were to be defeated by a mere physical practitioner, then I wouldn't even need to show my face anymore. I've underestimated you, Lin Yi said with a self-mocking smile. Ha ha ha. Lin Yi, to tell you the truth, my mental cultivation method is omnipotent. Not only can it absorb other people's true chi, but it can also transform other people's attacks into true chi when they enter my body, including the attacks of external experts. Do you know how I cultivate? I often injure myself all over so that I can improve my strength. Plus, even poisons don't work on me. I can convert them all into chi, Naipeo said proudly. You haven't learned how to convert energy, have you? All kinds of energy could be converted into each other. Ha ha ha. Let me tell you, in front of me, you are simply too weak. If I were in a novel, I would be the main character with a halo and a golden finger, while you are just a supporting character for me to trample on. Wahahaha. Lin Yi was shocked, not because Naipeo wasn't afraid of physical practitioners, but because Naipeo's practitioner's arts were very similar to his own art of dragon mastery. Both of them were omnipotent energy conversion arts. The only difference was that Lin Yi's arts could convert the energy in the jade space into other types of energy, but Naipeo's was the opposite. He could convert all the energy in the outside world into his own true chi. Between the two, there was actually a similar effect. Lin Yi didn't think that Naipeo would have this kind of luck, training in such a strong practitioner's arts. Your practitioner's arts are very strong, both physical and spiritual. So you're saying that even if I don't touch you and attack you with weapons, you can still convert my true chi for your own use? Lin Yi asked. Of course. Naipeo laughed. Today, I'll let you know the truth before you die. I'll tell you the truth. I'm invincible under Earth class, the #1 under Earth class. Unless it's an early Earth class physical or spiritual master, they're nothing in front of me. It seems like Pin Liang didn't choose the wrong follower after all. You're very strong. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Finding a physical practitioner to deal with you was my first plan, but it seems like it's useless now. Instead of directly touching your body, I will use my weapon to attack you. This is my second plan, but it seems that it has failed again. My third plan was to use poison, but you're not even afraid of poison. You really are invincible. It seems like all three of my plans have failed. Ha ha ha. I told you. I'm a main character of this story. What are you? You're just an ant, trying to deal with me with a few useless plans? Are you dreaming? Naipeo heard Lin Yi admit defeat and was very pleased. But today I won't kill you. I'll make sure you lose all your strength again. I'm keeping you alive so that Liang Bro can kill you with his own hands. Hearing that all three of Lin Yi's plans had failed, Yu Bing and Chi-Chi's faces turned nervous and disappointed. This Zhang Naipeo was too strong, wasn't he? It was beyond their imaginations. Lin Yi's three plans were all useless against him. Is that so? But I've always felt like I'm the main character, right? Lin Yi suddenly spoke as he reached out with his right palm, slapping towards Naipeo, his chi bursting out of his body as he channeled his practitioner's arts. Huh, you're still trying to act cool in front of me? Naipeo didn't expect Lin Yi to initiate an attack at this point. He even channeled his practitioner's arts. Wasn't he looking to die? Naipeo smiled coldly as he raised his right hand, ready to receive Lin Yi's palm and suck all the chi out of his body. Since you want to be the main character so much, I'll let you be the main character today, but only for one chapter. I'll let you have more screen time and die a horrible death. Huh. Bang. As he spoke, Lin Yi and Naipeo's palms collided, but the next moment, Naipeo realized that Lin Yi had stopped channeling his practitioner's arts. There was no chi on his palm again. HM, what are you doing? Naipeo paused as he prepared to use his chi to send Lin Yi flying again. But then, Lin Yi's chi surged towards him like a tsunami. Naipeo paused but started laughing. Ha ha, I get it. You want to attack me when I'm not channeling my wasp absorption arts, right? So what if I am? Lin Yi asked. Chapter 1929. Date, October 20th, Chapter 1941. Faubert's wife Lin Yi glanced at the BMW's license plate and model. It was the latest American model this year. It hadn't been released in the country yet, so it had been imported not too long ago. The license plate, too, was the latest from Eastbox. It was obvious that it was a new car. He couldn't tell who the siblings were from the car. However, to be able to afford a villa and an X5M, this pair of siblings must be very rich. Yao Yao Shu. Faubert got out of the car and smiled when he saw Lin Yi and the others. He hadn't seen them for half a month. Faubert heard that the military training was over, so he rushed over. Faubert, you've been quite energetic recently. It seems like everything in Songshan is going well. Lin Yi smiled. Faubert was no longer depressed. He looked refreshed and energetic. Yeah, Pengzhan Industries is on the right track, and Mr. Chu has changed his business philosophy. Perhaps Pengzhan Industries will welcome a rapid growth. Faubert said, but it's all thanks to E. Because Uncle Fu also saw that there were neighbors moving things over there. He didn't say much and didn't say much. Faubert, the food is ready and the people are ready. We're just waiting for you. Meng Yao looked at Faubert mischievously. The people are ready as well. Faubert paused and remembered what Lin Yi said before. He shook his head helplessly. I'm already so old. I don't have those kinds of thoughts anymore. Thank you for your kindness. I've thought about it carefully. I still can't forget my wife, so although Faubert didn't finish his sentence, Lin Yi and the others understood what Faubert meant. He didn't want to remarry yet, so it was better to let it go for now. All right, let's just get to know each other as normal friends. You're the housekeeper of Songshan, and Grandma's son is the housekeeper of Dongheng. You'll have more chances to communicate with each other in the future, Lin Yi said. Okay, Yi, even if you didn't mention it, I have long wanted to visit this Ms. Sunday. Thank her for taking you in, Faubert said. As they spoke, the four of them walked into the villa. Grandma's son had just placed the last hot dish on the table. Seeing that they had arrived, she immediately greeted them warmly. Mr. Lin, Miss Chu, the guests are here. Dinner is ready. When Faubert heard Grandma's son's words, the smile on his face froze. He raised his head in disbelief and looked at Grandma Sunday. At that moment, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked at Grandma's son and was so moved that he couldn't speak. Time had changed her nirvana. The wind and frost had aged her appearance, but Faubert recognized the person in front of him at a glance. It was the woman he had been dreaming about, his wife, Sun Luoyue. It's her? She didn't die. She had been in Songshan all this time. Then why didn't she look for him? He was considered a famous person in Songsan. Although he didn't have as much exposure as a celebrity, he would always be accompanying Chu Pengzhan in some of Songshan's business newspapers. Faubert, this is Grandma's son. Lin, he introduced. He was about to introduce Faubert to Grandma's son when he turned around and saw Faubert's stunned expression. Lin, he was slightly stunned. Faubert? Faubert, what's wrong? Grandma's son was also a bit confused. What was wrong with this person? Why did he stare at him the moment he entered? Why was he stunned? Although Grandma's son knew that she had dressed up for the past few days and had some charm, she was definitely not a great beauty. How could an old woman move a man's heart? Besides, she also knew Faubert's identity. It could be said that in Pengzhan Industries, Faubert was only below one person but above tens of thousands of people. With this kind of identity, what kind of beauty couldn't he find? Why would he like her? So, although Grandma's son heard Lin Yi's matchmaking, she didn't care at all. Since this person didn't like her, then what did this look mean? However, Grandma's son also knew that this person should be closer than her, Lin Yi, and Chu Mingyao, so she didn't show any dissatisfaction. However, although Grandma's son was confused, she could feel the deep love in Faubert's eyes. This made Grandma's son feel very strange. Could it be that he fell in love with her at first sight? Luo Yu, is that you? Faubert raised his hand nervously. His voice was trembling, and his breathing became very rapid. Grandma's son looked at Faubert in confusion. Luo Yu? Who was Luo Yu? Huh, this name seemed a bit familiar. Had she heard of it before? Grandma's son shook her head again. She couldn't remember. Seeing Grandma's son's puzzled gaze, Faubert's heart sank. Although after so many years, the person in front of him was no longer that young and beautiful girl, but Faubert was sure that she was his wife, Sun Luo Yu. This was a feeling of closeness that came from the heart. I'm she. For the first time in many years, Li Fu said his real name, but he didn't care. The people standing around were all his closest people. No one would harm him. Moreover, Lin Yi was the person who saved his life many times. At this moment, Lin Yi also found out that Li Fu's real name was Shi. Li Fu, Shi, it was just two words turned upside down to form a name. Hearing the two words Shi, Grandma's son's face finally showed a slight change, but then, Grandma's son's eyes became blank, as if she was recalling something, but also seemed inexplicable. After a while, she shook her head and said, I seem to have known you before, but I don't remember anything. You know who I am? At this moment, Lin Yi saw Faubert's expression. He could roughly guess who Grandma's son was to Faubert. He just sighed. This world was sometimes very big and sometimes very small. In the same city for so many years, but there was no interaction. But Grandma's son went with them to the East Sea, and they actually met. Life is a drama made up of coincidence and fate. You are Sun Luo Yu, my wife. Faubert looked at Grandma's son and said anxiously. Meng Yao and Yu Shu didn't know much about Faubert's background, so they didn't react as fast as Lin Yi. Only at this moment, when Faubert said this, did they look at Faubert and Grandma's son in shock. Grandma's son was Faubert's dead wife? But Grandma's son was fine, so she didn't die. But looking at Grandma's son, she didn't seem to remember anything. Me? Your wife? Grandma's son's eyes widened in shock. My name is Sun Luo Yu. Chapter 1930. Grandma's son didn't think that Faubert would lie to her, because this kind of trick was used by young men to pick up girls. At their age, wasn't it ridiculous to use this kind of trick? And with Faubert's identity, there was no need for him to make up this kind of lie. Carrot / carrot. That's right. Faubert nodded and said, There's a mole under your right armpit, and on your left calf, there's a 10-centimeter long scar. Although Grandma's son knew that Faubert didn't seem to be lying, but at this time, when she heard Faubert say the characteristics of her body, she was still very surprised. Could it be that what he said was true? Was she really his wife? Naturally, Grandma's son knew about the mole under her armpit, but she didn't know where the scar on her calf came from. She couldn't remember it all, but Grandma's son always wore long clothes and pants, so it was impossible for her to expose these two places. Even Ming Yao and Yu Shu, who lived with her, didn't know about it. So how could Uncle Fu know? Sure enough, it's really you. Although Faubert was confident before, at this moment, seeing Grandma Sun's expression, Faubert's heart relaxed. It was her, no mistake, his wife. For a moment, Faubert was filled with emotions, and tears flowed down his old face. How many years had it been? How many times had he seen her in his dreams? Although she was younger and more beautiful than she was now, those were all illusions. When he woke up from the dream, it was all in vain. Although the current Grandma Sun was no longer youthful and beautiful, it was real in front of him. And what Faubert cared about was not her beauty, but this feeling. Even if she was disfigured, crippled, or even turned into a vegetable, Faubert would still be by her side. Until the end of time. I'm your wife. How come I don't remember? Grandma Sun looked at Faubert's excited look, and it didn't seem fake at all. But she had no memory at all. She only vaguely remembered that there seemed to be such a person in the depths of her memory. Yes. Faubert nodded heavily. Uncle Fu, Grandma Sun, I don't think we should just stand here. Let's eat something and talk. Lin, he sighed. It seemed like things were getting a bit awkward. It wasn't as simple as he thought. By a freak combination of factors, he wanted to find an old partner for Faubert, but he found his first wife instead. But Grandma Sun had lost her memory. However, Lenny could feel it clearly. Grandma Sun was not a cultivator, but according to Faubert, she should also be a cultivator. No, Sun Jingyi was also a cultivator, but the Sun family's internal energy cultivation method was very strange. It was a supplementary cultivation method, and it had nothing to do with strength. It was impossible to see through one's strength. However, on Sun Jingyi's body, if he didn't look carefully, he could still feel the fluctuations of qi. When he was a golden class, this feeling was almost non-existent. But after he reached the mystic class, or even the earth class, he could still find some characteristics of a cultivator on Sun Jingyi's body. But these characteristics on Grandma Sunday, not a single one. If it wasn't for Faubert being so sure that this person in front of him was his former wife, he couldn't believe it. This person was the Sun family's genius who could help Faubert recover his qi and heal his injuries. Yes. Look at me, I'm so excited. Faubert was a little apologetic. Everyone hasn't eaten yet, right? Let's eat together and talk. Faubert naturally sat together with Grandma. Sunday Mingyao's heart was full of emotions. But Yushu was curiously looking at Faubert and Grandma Sunday Lin. He had doubts in his heart, but he didn't ask. After sitting down, Faubert couldn't wait to put a mouthful of food into his mouth. But after eating, he said, "Not bad. This is the taste. How many years has it been? I've always missed this taste. Luoyin, I finally see you again." Grandma Sun also saw the deep love and longing in Faubert's eyes, but she really couldn't remember it all. In her memory, although she had a husband and a daughter, she didn't know where they went. Fu. Am I really your wife? What exactly happened to us? Grandma Sun didn't think that Faubert was lying to her. She was just a scavenger before she became Lin, and Mingyao's housekeeper. With this identity, she was definitely not good enough for Faubert. Even now, she felt that there was a gap between the two of them. Plus, she was an old woman now, not beautiful at all. Faubert's love came from his heart, and he didn't want anything from her. So in her heart, Grandma Sun believed Faubert's words. While sighing that it was really a coincidence, she was also a little troubled. She couldn't remember anything. Faubert hesitated, but he didn't continue. Let's eat first. I'll tell you after we eat. I don't ruin everyone's mood. What happened back then was a tragedy. Now that the family was sitting around the table, it was time to eat happily. Why talk about the sad past? Besides, now that he had found his wife, there was no need to talk about those sad things. The only regret was that his daughter was missing. She was so young, she was probably killed by the enemy. And his own master, although he was a sky-class master, how could the enemy let him go? In order to protect himself, he might have died under the enemy's encirclement. Yeah, let's eat first. Lenny knew about Faubert's background. He knew that if he said it now, He was afraid that everyone wouldn't be able to eat, so he quickly said, "Faubert, you met Grandma's son again. It's the will of the heavens. It's a happy occasion. Let's drink together and celebrate." Okay. Although Faubert thought about his daughter and master, to be able to find his wife was already a blessing in disguise. It was indeed a happy occasion, so he immediately nodded and agreed. This meal, the atmosphere was very strange. Faubert kept putting food into Grandma's son's bowl, but this meal was cooked by Grandma's son, Lin Chu Mingyao, and Yushu wanted to say something, but they didn't know what to say. This was a matter between Faubert and Grandma's son. They couldn't say anything. On the other hand, although Faubert looked very happy and excited, he didn't know how to say some words to Grandma's son. He didn't know where to start. Although Grandma's son was lucky to escape from the massacre that year, his daughter, Master, were not spared. If he told Grandma's son about it, would she be very sad? To be continued. Vote recommendation, monthly vote. Chapter 1931. Date, October 20th, Chapter 1943. Remembered? But these things had to be said. If he didn't say it, Faubert wouldn't be able to make Grandma's son believe that he was her husband. Even if Grandma's son did believe him, he wouldn't be able to hide it from her. Please remember, so Faubert tried to think of a way to express himself in a roundabout way to lessen Grandma's son's sadness. Faubert, Grandma's son, you guys must have a lot to talk about. How about this? You guys go to the room and talk alone. Yao Yao, Shu, and I will watch TV for a while. Linny said. The food was almost finished, and everyone looked like they didn't have much appetite. So Lin, he suggested. Okay. Faubert had wanted to talk to Grandma's son alone for a long time. If it wasn't in front of everyone, Faubert wouldn't know how to say it. It wasn't that he wanted to hide it from Meng Yao and the others, but there were some things that he didn't know how to say. Mr. Fu, come with me to my room, Grandma's son sighed. Grandma's son sighed. What happened today was too strange, and she couldn't accept it. However, she could see that Uncle Fu didn't seem to be lying, but she couldn't convince herself to believe him. Son, Miss Sun, you don't need to call me Mr. Fu. My name is Li Fu now. You can call me Li Fu. Faubert didn't want to reveal his identity. He didn't want his enemies to find out. Okay, Mr. Li Fu. Grandma's son paused. No wonder she felt this name was familiar when Meng Yao sent the money. Li Fu Su. Wasn't this reversed? Could it be that the name she really occupied a large proportion in his heart? Walking into the room with Faubert, Lin, he sat on the sofa. Meng Yao and Yushu sat down as well. Although the TV was turned on, all three of them were focused on Faubert. They didn't have a mood to watch TV at all. Yao Yao sis, do you think Grandma's son is Faubert's wife? Yushu asked. It should be. Meng Yao said, I've never seen Faubert lose his composure like that before, and his eyes don't look fake either. There's no reason for him to lie. Oh, that's strange. Why doesn't Grandma's son remember Faubert? Could it be that she also took the forget? Ga. Yushu suddenly realized that Meng Yao was glaring at her with a murderous glare. She quickly shut her mouth. She originally wanted to ask if Grandma's son had also taken the senseless grass, but she suddenly remembered that Lin, he was beside her. If she said it, then Lin, he would definitely ask about it, and it would be hard to explain. Moreover, thinking about it carefully, Grandma's son's situation was different from Lin Yi's. She didn't remember anything, not just Faubert. Yeah, Grandma's son might have lost her memories for some reason. Meng Yao quickly followed up on Yushu's words. Forgot some things? Linny frowned. He felt that he had forgotten some things after going crazy, but he didn't know what it was exactly. It was probably something related to Xiao Xiao, something about the first wife. With that thought, Linny asked, Yao Yao, I seem to have forgotten some things as well. It's about my first wife. Who is she? Meng Yao was about to explode. She wanted nothing more than to kick Yushu into outer space. What the hell was this girl talking about? Wasn't she just waiting for Lin to ask her about it? Wasn't she just waiting for Lin to ask questions? But she couldn't blame Shu in front of Lin Yi. Lin Yi would be even more suspicious if she did. So Meng Yao only glared at Shu before turning to Lin Yi and acting surprised. You don't remember the first wife? I don't. What's going on? Lin asked. It's like this. Yushu quickly told Lin about Xiao Xiao's idea. One had to admit that Shu was quite eloquent. Lin believed her after her vivid description. So you're saying that I didn't like Xiao Xiao, that why I took her in as a small wife, and she agreed to let me find a first wife? Lin thought about it. He and Xiao Xiao didn't really have a good relationship. The girl was always messing with him, and he'd messed with her a couple of times. He only got together with her because he heard that she was sick. Then, what Yushu said was possible. And with Xiao Xiao's personality, she was always encouraging him to play with her. So what she said was true. So he didn't have a first wife, and he was just looking for one? If that was the case, then it made sense. But why did he feel like it wasn't complete yet? That's right, that's it. Yushu said. The truth is, Yao Yao and I didn't know that Xiao Xiao had a terminal illness, so we kept pushing her aside. I said that Yao Yao and I could play 3P with you, and Xiao Xiao didn't like it. So, she wanted you to find a first wife to play 3P with us as well. Ming Yao didn't know what to say, but she let Yushu continue. After all, Yushu's story made sense, and Ming Yao didn't know what to say. And then, Lin nodded. What Yushu said seemed to be in his memories, and something like that did happen before, so Lin didn't suspect anything. But what Lin didn't know was that Yushu was just putting the blame on Xiao Xiao for what happened to Tang Yun, and that it was Tang Yun who got Xiao Xiao to go against her, and Yao Yao, not Xiao Xiao who wanted a first wife. But with Yushu twisting it like this, Lin felt that it really was the case. And then I looked for one, but before I could find one, Xiao Xiao and I got back together, and we became a prankster duo, and that was it. Yushu said. I see. Lin nodded. I lost control and forgot some things, but now that you reminded me, I remember some things. It's not clear, but at least I know what's going on. Yeah, but Xiao Xiao told Yao Yao and me before she left, saying that if you were looking for a first wife, Yao Yao, and I should help you check, and that you can't just bring any random woman back. Yushu started making up a story. Chapter 1932. Date, October 20th, Chapter 1944. Can't remember. Oh, I'll tell you guys if I want to. Please keep that in mind. Lin nodded. All right, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about Faubert. Right, Lin you know about Faubert's background, right? What's going on? Can you tell me and Shu about it? Meng Yao was afraid that Lin would start asking questions again, and so she quickly changed the topic back to Faubert. She was also very curious as to what happened between Faubert and Grandma Sunday Lin. He obviously knew about it from his expression at the dinner table. All right, Lin didn't have anything to do anymore. While Faubert talked to Grandma's son, Lin told Meng Yao and Yushu about Faubert's family. The Miss Face was a little sad when Lin was done, and Shu was silent as well. The two were evidently affected by Faubert's tragedy. Lin didn't interrupt them, and Lin felt the same sadness when he heard Faubert's story. After a while, Meng Yao spoke up. I knew that Faubert had a sad past, but I didn't know it was this bad. Yeah, I didn't think that Faubert's daughter and his Sherfu, Yushu was showing her true self now. Luckily, he found Grandma's son. That's a blessing in disguise. Yeah, as long as they can be together, they can spend the rest of their lives peacefully. Meng Yao nodded. But I don't know how Grandma's son lost her memories, and if she can recover them. Yushu said. Meng Yao was so pissed that she wanted to kick Yushu's chubby boobs to death. What the hell was this about amnesia again? Lin your medical skills are superb. Do you have a way? Meng Yao changed the topic to Lin Yi's medical skills, not giving Lin much time to think. I'll give it a try. Lin couldn't guarantee anything. He would check it later. Not long after Lin finished speaking, Faubert and Grandma's son pushed open the door and walked out. Lin saw that although Faubert's face was filled with relief, there was also some distress. Grandma's son's face seemed to be filled with sadness and confusion. Faubert, how is it? Meng Yao asked. I told her everything, but she couldn't remember anything. Faubert smiled bitterly. I'm not sure if I'm Mr. Li Fu's wife, because I really don't remember anything, Grandma's son said painfully. I can't remember anything. I have no memory at all, but I know that you guys wouldn't lie to me. Right, Faubert, when you and Grandma's son got married, Didn't you have a marriage certificate? Lin, he suddenly asked. This was the most important piece of evidence. Although these Willeen people didn't really care about the rules of the common world, it was still possible for them to go through the motions. Yes, but we didn't even have time to save our lives when the whole family was annihilated. Where we get the chance to take those things out? Faubert smiled bitterly. My identity as Li Fu was also registered by Mr. Chu. But there should be a record in the civil office, right? Wouldn't we know when we check? Linny said, if it's registered in another province, I can ask Huaijuan or Lingshan to do it. It should be easier for them. That's right. Faubert's eyes lit up. Luoyue, when we got married, we took a picture too. There must be a record. We'll know when we check. Grandma's son believed Faubert's words, but she didn't mind confirming it if there was evidence. Linny didn't waste any time, calling Huaijuan's number and telling him about the situation. Huaijuan agreed without hesitation, since it was a piece of cake for him to investigate a marriage registration. Not long after, Huaijuan sent an email to Lin Yi's phone. It was the record of son Luoyue and Shi's marriage. One had to admit that Huaijuan was very efficient. It was already time to get off work, but Huaijuan still got the record in a short amount of time. He passed the phone to Faubert and Grandma Sunday Lin. He said, "It's here. Now, Grandma's son, do you believe me?" It's really like this. Grandma's son looked at the record on the phone. A complicated expression appeared on her face. After all, what Faubert said was very sad, but Grandma's son didn't have any memories of it. But now that her identity was confirmed, Grandma's son's heart felt empty. Although she found her husband, her daughter and her husband's master were probably gone. This difference between happiness and sadness made her silent again. Grandma's son, the dead are long gone. It's been so long, don't think about it. Now that we found Faubert again, isn't it a blessing in disguise? If it wasn't for fate, we might not have met again. Lin, he said. Yeah. Grandma's son nodded and sighed. She felt a little better. So, I was a practitioner and a member of the noble house, son? Of course. Faubert nodded. But now Grandma's son's eyes showed a trace of confusion again. This feeling of not remembering anything was very depressing. She tried her best to remember the past. If she could remember the past, then she might know some things that Faubert didn't know, and that was the whereabouts of her daughter and master. If she didn't know these things, then it would be fine. But since she knew, Grandma's son was naturally very eager to know the answer. She frowned, as if she was trying hard to remember something, but to no avail. No, I still can't remember. I don't remember anything. There are some vague impressions, but I don't know what they are. Grandma's son, are you remembering? Linny asked. Yes, if you can remember what happened in the past, maybe you will have some clues about your daughter and master. You can also know a little about your enemy. Grandma's son nodded and said, Grandma's son, let me help you check it. Lin, he didn't know what Grandma's son meant. Although he wanted to help, if Grandma's son didn't want to remember the tragic past, then Lin, he wouldn't interfere. That was because it was not a happy thing for anyone. It would only make them more depressed and sorrowful. But Grandma's son clearly wanted to remember what happened in the past and find some clues. So Lin naturally had to find a way to help. Oh, you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.